Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto dies in the last day of the Shinobi War and transported into a hollow. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. Naruto opened his eyes. He groaned and got up. He looked up into the night sky. Above the stars twinkled, casting a faint light down into the blood-soaked battleground below. The boy gasped and got up as he remembered what had happened. The armies of the Shinobi Alliance and Madara had clashed. The carnage had been immense. The Zetsu were dangerous enough, but Kabuto's Edo Tensei had been the real striking force of the enemy army, each an unkillable super soldier that cost many lives simply to restrain. He had trained with Killer Bee, the Hachibi host, to master his own powers and had finally been forced into the field of battle when Madara found his location and attacked directly. He had escaped, but Bee had been captured by the resurrected forms of Hanzo, Nagato and Itachi. Edo Tensei, the mere thought of that jutsu brought bile to Naruto's throat. To resurrect the dead and force them to kill their comrades in life. That was unforgivable. "Have you found peace?" was what Nagato had said to him, right before his emotions had been wiped and he had been turned into a killing machine. Then he continued to remember. Sasuke had emerged, revealing a new eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Only Naruto had the power to stand against him. They had fought, until Naruto revealed what Kabuto had done to his brother's soul. Sasuke had confronted his brother and realized what he had become. Sasuke died fighting Madara after managing to kill Kabuto after forcing him to release the Edo Tensei with his Sharingan Genjutsu. But even with the Edo Tensei gone, Madara was still too powerful. He had managed to rip the Kyuubi from Naruto, with Naruto barely surviving due to his Uzumaki heritage. He became an incomplete Jubi, sealing the other 8 beasts into himself, but even incomplete, Jubi was godlike in itself. The reminder of the Shinobi Alliance fell before him. Sakura, Granny Tsunade, Kakashi Sensei. All had burned, until he had fought Madara and died bringing him down. Eventually the loss of the Kyuubi had proved too much and he had died immediately after killing Madara. Died? Naruto looked down in shock. A chain led from a hole in his gut. He grasped the thing, feeling pain lance through his body. Was he dead? This could not be. He stepped around hesitantly, reaching out to touch a nearby tree, only to pause in shock as he passed right through it. He stumbled back, eyes wide as he looked around, then he stopped, gasping in shock and horror. He looked into his own sightless eyes. His bloodied corpse was spread out next to the burnt-out husk of Madara. There was a huge hole in his gut, where his Kyuubi seal used to be. He stepped backwards, turning his gaze away from those glassy eyes. "What is this?" Naruto screamed. "Is this death?" he questioned. "Oh, look, a plus," a voice said. It was a kind of warped voice, as if someone was speaking through a filter. Naruto turned around and his eyes winded. It was a monster, 20 feet tall, with a white and green body. Sword-like teeth jutted out of its fossil-like mask as its twin tails lashed behind it. Its arms were long and simian, tipped with bladed claws that flexed as he did so. "What are you?" Naruto gasped. "Just a hollow, little plus." The sword jaws opened and Naruto screamed. There was a flash of fangs and claws and then Naruto only knew pain. His chest was ripped open by the hollow and soon white liquid filled his face and his mouth as his body was racked with new pain. He screamed, his voice warping and changing as he did so. And then, Naruto opened his eyes. He stared back as the reverse crescent moon in the black sky. He groaned, feeling his body ache as he slowly got up. The sand shifted beneath him slowly as he pushed himself up with his claws, trying to gain proper support. Claws? He turned himself over and gasped in surprise. His body was covered in some sort of flickering white material, similar to his controlled host form that he had learned under Killer Bee. He had black markings like he had in that same form over the rest of his body. The key differences was that he was huge now, at least 10 feet tall, and he no longer had human limbs, but longer, bestial limbs tipped with white claws. And there was a gaping hole in his stomach, right where his seal used to be. "What the hell?" he gasped. His voice had changed, it was low and metallic now. He touched his hole. He felt no pain, just gnawing sensation that demanded to be fulfilled. He pushed his hand through his stomach, feeling it come out the other side. Then he trailed his claw up his face. He felt cold bone. He blinked and realized he was wearing some sort of mask. He tried to get it off, but the thing seemed determined to stay on. What the hell was happening? Silence, and then there was a low wet leopard growl. Naruto looked over as some sort of lizard thing leapt over the dunes. It had 6 eyes in the mask and multiple, whip-like arms. He squatted in the sands and looked at it quizzically before it opened its mouth and hissed, sending bits of spittle flying over the desert. Naruto felt a sudden hunger pierce his stomach. It was unlike anything he had ever felt before. It was a gnawing, hollow feeling. He gave a bestial growl and leapt at the lizard thing. His claws tore crimson strips in the lizard's skin as he felt this mask split open and his fangs tear into the neck of the lizard. He got up, feeling the hunger stop for a moment. He groaned and looked up into the unnatural crescent moon in the sky. "What is happening?" he asked. "Ah, you must be a newbie then," a voice said behind him. Naruto whirled around. Some sort of ape-like being stood there. It had a white body, like Naruto, but was covered in blue markings, and it had 4 arms instead of 2. Its eyes glowed behind its bestial mask and it cocked its head in amusement. "What are you? Where am I?" he asked. "To answer your question, you are a hollow," the new being said, stalking forward. "A hollow?" Naruto said. "A soul transformed either by feelings of loss and rage, or when attacked by another hollow." "You're dead, you know that?" said the thing. "Dead?" Naruto recoiled as he remembered. "Huh, I bet you're feeling a terrible hunger now, am I right?" The ape thing pressed forward. "What about it?" Naruto challenged the hollow. "It's what we hollows are. Hollowed out in hunger. We must consume souls to survive, human souls, or hollow souls, it doesn't matter." The ape thing then suddenly lunged towards him, teeth and claws bared. Naruto leapt to the side. "What the hell are you doing?" he demanded, sand spraying into the air as he skidded away. "Don't act stupid. You just devoured another hollow here. It's a dog-eat-dog world here. You either eat or you die." The thing laughed and lunged again, this time faster. Naruto put his hands together in his customary Taurus seal and prepared to summon Kage Bushin. Only to find out nothing had happened. "What?" he said in surprise. But the new hollow had little time to react as a piece of his forearm was torn away. Blood flew into the air as the ape thing tore part of his skin away. Naruto leapt back as the thing jaws loomed closer. This was madness. Then Naruto felt hunger surge up inside him. Suddenly he had to eat. He had to consume. He ducked inside the 4-armed lunge and pressed his teeth into an arm, tearing it off in one powerful motion. He eagerly gulped down the meat as the ape hollow fled backwards. "What? This is impossible. No newborn hollow can be this strong." The ape thing was cut off by Naruto's jaws closing in on his head. Cracking his mask, Naruto dove in, tearing at the soft meat within. His fangs ripped and tore at the substance to relieve the hunger within him. Blood and flesh flew over the sands as Naruto stumbled away. The hunger had been sated for now. He could think clearly. He looked up in horror at the crescent moon, horrified at what he had become. He could not be a monster. No, would find it way. He would become something more than a mere hollow. He would end this hunger. He swore it. Hours turned into days and days turned into weeks. Naruto kicked up the sands as he ran through the endless white desert. At first he had tried to stop feeding. But eventually the hunger took over his sense of restraint and he ripped into any hollow he came across. Gone was his headstrong and reckless personality. Instead it was replaced by a ruthless cunning. It was the only way to survive in the hellish black and white nightmare of Hueco Mundo's desert. The hollow came in all shapes and sizes, but they all tasted foul to Naruto, but it was the only substance he could find in this place. He had learned that it was called Hueco Mundo, and that apparently he could travel to the world of the living if he chose to. He didn't want to. That place held too many bad memories for him. Memories. Apparently he was a rarity among the hollows. The few hollows he had spoken to had been shocked that he retained his human memories. They told him it wouldn't last long, in time he would forget his human self and lose his identity. He refused to forget so easily. Kakashi, he mentally repeated as he leapt through the air. A spiny hollow looked up in surprise as Naruto's jaws closed in around his head. He wrenched his jaws, tearing off the hollow's head as he guzzled into the meat and blood inside. New reishi filled him as he ripped into the flesh of the beast. Arms and legs were ripped and stuffed into Naruto's hungry maw. Bones were kicked about and scattered into the alabaster sand. Blood dripped from his jaws as he hurried along. He hated this kind of existence. Sakura Haruno. He would not lose his memories. Another hollow. This one was a wolf-like with multiple eyes. It lunged in quick, taking off a bit on Naruto's flank before Naruto blocked the attack of the hollow and plunged his claws into the thing's side. The wolf-like hollow fell back. Naruto's jaws closed in on the fallen beast as he ripped into the warm flesh below. He threw back his head, tearing deeper into the organs. He needed more. He always needed more thanks to that damned hunger in him. Sasuke Uchiha. His heart wrenched at the memory of his former friend turned enemy, but the needed to remember. He would not lose himself. More arms arced from above as Naruto dodged. A huge multi-armed hollow came crashing down at him. Bladed tentacle arms lashed at him, but the white hollow grabbed one and wrenched it off. Then he tore off another one. The hollow gave a bestial screech and lunged backward, trying to get away from him, but Naruto wouldn't allow it. He leapt after the thing, sinking his teeth into the back of the hollow, ripping through the spine and into the reishi-filled flesh inside. More and more did he gorge until he had his fill for now. He got up, his powerful body stretching as he looked around. He had to find a way to end this damned hunger. He screamed out into the night his rage and frustration as he charged off, kicking up a vast trail of sand behind him as he did so. He had learned much in his short stay in Hueco Mundo. He knew of the Shinigami, the enemy to his race. Supposedly you could get purified by one of their weapons and sent to Soul Society, but among the hollows that was regarded as a poor fate. Why? There were many different reasons. Some said you became the slaves of the Shinigami. Others thought that it wiped your memories. Others thought that they took your souls. Whatever the case, Naruto was not exactly thrilled on meeting one if the tales were true. He had no desire to find out death a second time. Although many months in the wastes had given him time to think about death. Was there a hell? Was there a heaven? Was there a god of sorts? How could this possibly be fair? There was no fairness to the hunger. Naruto tried to find out how to end it. He had heard rumors of being able to evolve into a higher breed of hollow called the Manos. Supposedly if you evolved to the highest grade of Manos, Vasto Lord, the hunger would lessen to almost nothing. And there were more rumors that nobody was sure of. They said if you broke off your mask you would gain Shinigami powers and finally be freed from the hunger that consumed hollows. But it sounded strange to Naruto. Great sand was kicked up into the air as Naruto ran through the sandstorm. Ahead scores and scores of hollows fought and ripped at each other. It was a bloodbath free for all with no sense of order or unity among them. Hollows fought and killed each other in own giant melee. Naruto had an urge to join in. He couldn't explain it, but he felt drawn to it. It was instinct. He leaped on the back of a feline hollow and tore its guts out with a swipe of his claws, gulping up the remains as he did so. Then another deer-like hollow died before his claws. Two more ogre hollows died in as many seconds as Naruto ripped and tore his way through the melee. Sand. Sand was everywhere, he thought. He felt pain on his back as someone clipped him. He lashed out, tearing off an arm. More hollows surrounded him, ripping and tearing at each other. One pair went down, the larger eating the smaller one. Naruto leapt on the larger one's back and ate him, and then he consumed the smaller one. He dove again into the swirling melee, ripping and tearing at hollow in order to feed himself. This current load would not satisfy him, he needed more. Eventually the group of hollow grew smaller and smaller as the Ryotsu concentration in the air grew heavier and heavier. Gradually the hollow began to merge and warp, flesh running as they grew together and fused into each other. Ryotsu tore into the air, swirling sand around them as a new black shape merged from the sands as the mass of hollow souls grew together. A new humongous shape emerged from the sands and gazed out with empty eyes. This new hollow was the size of several stories. It looked like it wore some sort of huge black cloak over its towering frame. Its face was a pale beak-like mask that jutted out. It gave a mindless roar and lurched off into the distance. Somewhere, Naruto struggled. "Who are you?" A voice screamed. "I want my mommy." Another whimpered. "I'll kill you all. I'll eat you. Die." Another screamed. Within the consciousness of the Jillian, the souls fought and pushed against each other in an effort to exert dominance. Only one consciousness would emerge victorious here. Only one would evolve into a higher grade of Manos. Naruto floated in a sea of souls. There was no light. There no was sense of touch, only a swirling sense of noise and chaos. Hundreds of souls pressed down upon each other, trying to gain dominance over one another. No, Naruto said to himself. It would not end like this. I am Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha, son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. He screamed. Who the hell are you? He screamed. The voices moved about, never silencing, never stopped. I am Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha, son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. He repeated again. I am Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha, son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. He repeated once more. And I will not fade away. The huge Jillian lurched through the forest of Manos. Its jaws unhinged as it tore into the neck of another Manos, ripping through the flesh there and eating as much Riryoku as it could. He roared again and lurched forward once more. Around it dozens of Jillian continued forward aimlessly. Jillian were dumb creatures with the brains of dogs. They tended to form packs together and feast on each other from time to time and do little else than that. Then the Jillian sized up and gave another ear-splitting roar. Ryotsu gathered and warped around it in crimson waves. Eventually the Jillian began to shudder and warp, its mask changing into a skull-like shape. The Jillian glowed and shrank, compressing into a new, more humanoid shape. Red light washed through the forest of Manos. Eventually a new shape took form within the swirling sands and Ryotsu. A humanoid shape lifted itself up. It was white, like Naruto's earlier hollow form, with black markings on its arms and legs. Its face was skull-like, with a pair of small horns extending from the forehead. Blonde hair spread out in a spiky wave from the rear of the mask. Naruto Uzumaki opened his jaws and roared. I will not fade away, he screamed once more. Then the hunger hit again. The newborn Ejukas looked around and leapt into the nearest Jillian. Jaws stretching out to fell the great beast. The Jillian screamed, thrashing about as the Ejukas tore away chunks of flesh and continued to feed. More Jillian screams echoed in the forest of Manos as Naruto Uzumaki continued his feast for more souls. Naruto leapt from tree branch to tree branch, his crowned head turning from side to side, looking for fresh prey. The hunger had not ceased in his new form and he had to continue to eat or he would revert back into a Jillian. He had no idea how much time had passed since he had died. It could be months, years, decades or even centuries. But he must keep eating or else he would revert. Naruto shuddered. To him that was a fate worse than death, or at least whatever forms of true death that hollows suffered. He had been rather horrified to learn that fate when he had become an Ejukas. It meant he could not mess around. If he let another hollow eat his piece of himself he would never be able to evolve. He would not fade away. He would retain his mind and memories. He would not die. Kakashi Hatake, Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha. He remembered those names. But wait, he thought there were others. He groaned in frustration as he tried to remember them. Shikamaru. The name came to him suddenly. He nodded. Yes, that was a name. But there were others. He had to remember them. A cry came through the forest of Manos. This in itself was nothing new. But a huge Ryotsu burst that came along with it perked Naruto's interest. He leapt down from the branches and ran through the forest quickly. This new Ryotsu was huge and refined in a way that Naruto had never experienced before. He peered across a clearing to see a lion-like Ejukas under attack from some sort of insectid Ejukas. It roared as a snake-like hollow came to its side. The lion-like Ejukas nearly missed its head being taken off before it lunged forward again. But the insect hollow battled both of the Ejukas away. Then there was a flash and the insect seemed to fall away into two bloody halves. A figure stood, a figure much smaller than Naruto's massive height. To Naruto's shock the new hollow was roughly the size of a human. It looked like it was covered in some sort of bodysuit. The shape was female, that much Naruto could recognize. One arm was shaped into a massive tooth-shaped sword. Black hollow blood dripped from it into the sands as the being turned to look at Naruto, who stepped out. The Ejukas cocked his head in interest at her. She almost reminded him of Granny Tsunade. I don't think I've ever seen a hollow protect another here, Naruto said. I've seen them form packs to hunt together, but never have I seen one protect one another. I don't see what any business it is of yours, the female hollow said. I'm a curious guy. You can relax, lady. I don't intend to fight any of you. Naruto said. Can we eat him, Harabel-sama? The lion hollow asked. After a moment Naruto realized that Ijukas was a female. Interesting. If he was correct, then the snake hollow and the newly revealed Do hollow were all females. The female, Harabel, shook her head. No, she looked at him. She had green eyes, he noticed. We fight together because we can be more than hollows. Female hollows are easy prey for the male ones. If we work together as a group we can survive. She explained. Naruto was silent for a moment. You're a Vasto Lord, aren't you? He asked softly. You're correct, she replied. Tell me. Naruto began, his voice rising in hope. Does the hunger stop? Does it ever disappear once you reach that state? This time Harabel was silent. No, it lessens, but it still exists. I rarely eat though, she offered. Naruto's head hung low. I see, he whispered. He turned and fled through the forest. Should we pursue him? Asked the lioness. Harabel watched the strange hollow disappear through the forest. No, there's something special about that one. Naruto leapt through the forest of Manos. Rage and frustration filled his heart. He wanted to escape it, to escape the damned hunger. He felt it stirring again. A hunger that he knew would not end and would gnaw away at him forever. A tall, green-skinned Ijukas with hammer-like fists looked up. Naruto landed on him, crushing the Ijukas below. Naruto blocked a fist sent his way as he tore off a chunk of the Ijukas's arm and sent it back. The Ijukas screamed and lunged forward again, but this time Naruto leapt forward and tore out its throat with one swift blow. The thing gagged and staggered around as Naruto's jaws opened and he went for the kill. After Naruto finished up his latest meal he stood alone in the forest. He idly kicked a bone out of the way. What did he do now? If Vasto Lord level couldn't end the hunger, then what could? Old rumors floated to the top of his mind. Supposedly if you tore off your mask you would gain Shinigami powers and end the eternal hunger. Naruto's claws found purchase near his mask. Then he began to claw at it, then stopped. No, it would probably best to amass as much power as he could first and become Vasto Lord before he tested out that theory. In fact, if he could meet hollows who had successfully torn off their masks, it would be that much better to confirm that theory. Who knew what would happen if he tore off his mask and he didn't gain power and freedom from the hunger? So, Vasto Lord it was then. He sighed. It was going to be a long and difficult journey. Maybe he could find his answers in the human world? Reality ripped open as Naruto hesitatingly spread open the boundaries of space. He stepped through the hole and walked into the night sky of the human world. His crimson eyes glowed briefly as he looked out into the buildings below. It was big, bigger than Konoha had ever been. There were far more lights than his former home. And the buildings were huge, reaching far into the sky. It was strange and confusing. How much time had passed since his death? How many years had passed? Could it have been centuries? Could his name have been forgotten? Did anything of his former friends exist? He descended from the skies, flying gingerly, not entirely used to the skill. He had only recently mastered the art of condensing reishi in one's legs for flight. He landed roughly on the ground below and straightened up. In the distance he could see humans walk by. None of them noticed him, which was expected. Unless you were spiritually sensitive, the living could not see the dead. That was one thing Naruto was thankful for. He briefly considered hunting down a plus and eating it. Then he tossed away the idea. He didn't have much humanity left, but he would be damned before he completely surrendered himself to his hunger and became a monster. And besides, a single human soul would hardly sat him. Naruto gorged himself on Manos Grande now. Even regular hollows could barely provide substance for him. Plus would do very little for his appetite anyway. He lifted his horned head up and growled lightly as he sensed a burst of Ryotsu several blocks away. It was Hollow Ryotsu, one of the common hollows that was. Not an Ijukas like himself. He signed and began to fly towards it, his curiosity piqued. Why exactly had he come here again? Was it curiosity to see his former home once more? Or was it wanderlust? Did he need to remind himself who he once was again? He really didn't know why. Something big and red passed below him as Naruto looked down in shock. On the streets were some sort of metallic beasts that sputtered out smoke and gas. He looked down briefly before he realized that they were some sort of transports being used by the humans. Amazing. What else had changed since his death? He passed by crowds of humans, watching the windows of various shops pass by until he reached some sort of open area with more of the metal beasts lined up in rows. But the transports were still and lifeless, as if they were turned off. A hollow roared as a blade bisected it. It dissolved away into the air. Naruto cocked his head to see what looked like a red-haired man flick his blade clean of hollow blood before he looked around. "Is that a Shinigami's Zanpakuto?" Naruto asked. The red-haired man whirled around. Naruto saw tattoos on the man's face. "What? Another one? Wait, you're Ameno's," he said with obvious surprise. He brought his blade up in a combat stance. Obvious fear etched itself into his face. "I didn't come here to fight you. You're the first Shinigami I've met." Naruto cocked his head and walked towards him, arms spread in a placating gesture. "I just want to talk." "Howl. Zabumaru." The sword changed before Naruto's eyes, extending into some sort of serrated cleaver. Then the Shinigami's wrist flickered and the sword extended towards Naruto, stretching out into multiple blades. Naruto leapt to the side, dodging the first blow. Then the blades came wrapping around to strike at him. The hollow grabbed the blades before they could completely cut him. But pain shot up his claws as he took the blow. He growled and yanked the sword to the side, sending the man holding it crashing into a nearby building. Naruto tossed away the Zanpakuto, examining the wounds on his hands even as they closed due to his regeneration. "Are all Shinigami so hostile?" he asked the dust cloud. "Shut up." The sword came lashing out again, cutting Naruto once more. The hollow backed away, red light collecting in his fingers. He pointed at the red-haired Shinigami. "Sero," a wave of raw spiritual energy lanced out, engulfing the Shinigami and hurling him back into another building. Naruto watched for a moment before he walked over and observed the brunt and blackened body of the Shinigami. He was still alive, Naruto could tell that. The upper half of his robe was missing and his skin was burnt and blackened by the Sero, but he was alive. Naruto sighed and shook his head as he walked away into the night. He could feel the presence of more Shinigami approaching. He must have somehow called for backup. "If you can hear me, Shinigami, I hope we'll never meet again." Naruto sighed and opened a garganta. Reality tore as the hollow disappeared into Hueco Mundo once more. Some weeks later Naruto looked down as several Ijukas fought among each other. He could tell from their Ryotsu they were all weaker than he was by a fairly good margin, but by no means weak themselves. He watched as one pinned another down and gorged at its neck, its jaws ripping and tearing at the meat. As the hollow continued its meal, it was pounced by another tiger-like hollow that beheaded it with one swipe of its arms. This one was stronger than the others, and smaller too. It resembled a white and black tiger, except its front paws were replaced by some sort of saber-like blades. It didn't walk on 4 legs but 2. Its mask had drastically longer fangs as well. The tiger hollow leapt up into the air, avoiding the attack of another Ijukas. A rose-colored Sero gathered in its saber claw and it fired it point blank into an Ijukas, wounding it badly. But before the tiger could claim its kill, it was rushed by 2 more Ijukas. It moved with impressive speed, taking off one arm and before beheading the Ijukas and dodging the attack of another. While it did this, the earlier Ijukas that was wounded got up and jumped towards the tiger hollow. Naruto came down from above and crushed the wounded hollow beneath his claws, beheading it in one swift move. He stood still, watching the tiger-like Ijukas finish off the other 2 before he turned to face Naruto. Other Mainos were still fighting and tearing them apart. "Nice work, but you would have been gutted by the one I killed," Naruto said. "Hey, maybe." The tiger launched forward, blade arms cutting through the air. But Naruto dodged and kicked him back into a tree. The tiger go up, growling. "I'm not going to eat you or fight you," Naruto suddenly said. The tiger-like hollow stopped suddenly, looking at him suspiciously. "You want to form a pack?" he asked. Hollows forming groups were not uncommon. "I want a partnership. I want to become a Vasto Lord," Naruto stated. "Don't we all?" The tiger laughed. Naruto sighed and released his spiritual power. All of it. Crimson waves of energy filled the forest like new light. The tiger gasped and fell to his knees as he looked up in shock at the sheer amount of Ryotsu that Naruto was emitting. "I think I have a chance to become one. But I don't think it can be done alone. I don't want to be alone." "What use is it to be at the top when you're alone?" Naruto asked. "You want comrades?" the tiger hollow asked. "Yep." Naruto extended a claw. "Will you join me?" That strength, it's more than a mere comrade could have, you utterly eclipse my own power. Gigio said. I don't have a choice, do I? No, don't think like that. I don't want unwilling slaves. Naruto said. That power, did that come from you? Said another hollow. Naruto turned to see a fiddler crab hollow rise up from the sands. Another red eagle Ijukas perched on a tree branch and a tall, thin feminine hollow peered out from behind said tree. They looked like the last survivors of the bloodbath. All were powerful, but not as strong as Naruto. Yeah, he said, exacta. Even if we all attacked you we would still lose, the crab hollow said. Nobody could possibly be that strong, said the eagle hollow nervously. Really? Naruto replied as he zipped up right next to the eagle. The bird-like Ijukas whirled around in surprise. But a huge burst of Ryotsu knocked him down into the ground. Exacta. You are strong. If you want people to join you then, the crab hollow knelt before him, or at least as much as his body allowed him to. Lead us, he asked Naruto. Lead? The Ijukas frowned beneath his mask. To lead, that brought back old, half-forgotten memories of a life he had left behind. I want to become Hokage. The thought echoed in his mind. He buried it away. Become our pack leader. Become our king, the crab hollow said. Naruto hesitated, but only for a moment. Deal. He looked them over. The tiger hollow cleared his throat. My lord, we don't know your name. Oh, I am Naruto Uzumaki, but you don't have to call me lord or anything. He stated. I am Gigio Vega. The tiger mentioned to himself. Findor Korea's Naruto-sama, said the crab. Avirama Redder, squawked the eagle as he righted himself. Charlotte Coolhorn, bellowed the feminine hollow in a deep manly voice. Naruto's head snapped around in shock. Are you a guy? Of course Naruto-sama, I'm quite dashing if I do say so myself. Charlotte said, posing for him. Naruto shuddered. Findor facepalmed as best he could with a claw. The big elephant one's mine, declared Gigio as he kicked off into the sands. Years had passed since Naruto had gathered these hollows as his followers. I've got the beetle though, said Avirama. The tiger and the eagle came in. A trunk lashed out, but Gigio blocked it and cut off the tip. The elephant hollow screamed and changed up a Sero. But Gigio moved in before it could be fired and hamstrung the hollow. The blue-green Sero fired off into the sands, kicking up a huge dust storm. Gigio growled and rammed his saber claws through the eye sockets of the elephant before wrenching them apart and tearing into the mask. He ripped and tore freely away at it. The beetle hollow never had a chance as Avirama rushed it and tore it to pieces with his talons. His great red wings flapped upwards as he tore eagerly into the hollow meat, scarfing it all down. Naruto sighed and sat on a sand dune. Oh dear, they've gorged it all. Charlotte groaned. Exacta, you'll get the next fill, said Naruto, placing one finger on the sands. A light crimson glow emitted there. I've got a strong one. A big one a few hundred feet from here. Gigio, Avirama, Findor, Charlotte, let's go, he commanded. Yes my lord. Naruto's followers sped after him as they rushed through the desert. The hollow came up. It was some sort of massive armored beast with two hinge-like arms held tightly at its sides. Its eyes were blood red and its feet were long and lanky. It looked up and glared at them through its eyes. Near it was another bony worm-like hollow and a large, shell-like hollow. Who are you? I am Naruto Uzumaki. These are my followers. My desire is to save it. I'll consume you, the hulking hollow began. One of its hinge-like arms unfolded and let out a huge energy blast. Naruto leapt to the side as Charlotte screamed in a rather girly manner, the backlash of the blast catching him and sending him flying. Avirama, Findor, handle the one on the right. Charlotte, Gigio, go with the one on the left. This guy is mine. Naruto leapt forward, claws tearing off a bit of bone from the hollow's shoulder. The armored hollow leapt away, its hinge-like arm opening again and letting out another massive energy blast. Naruto extended his hands and then caught it, the energy blast sending him skidding back. He grunted and tossed the blast to the side as the larger hollow blurred and disappeared next to him, lashing out with another blast, this time almost point blank. When the sand cleared, one of Naruto's arm was gone below the elbow. "Ha, you lost an arm," the other hollow began. But he was suddenly cut off by a new limb growing and reforming. High-speed regeneration, Naruto smugly informed him as he dove forward, claws taking out one of the large hollow's legs. The hollow fell to the ground cursing as Naruto leapt on top and sank his jaws deep into the flesh of the larger hollow. Fresh reishi filled his body as he felt his reserves swell with new force. He leapt of the corpse and glanced around. Super GLAMEROUSY Magnum Athletic Awesome Revolutionary, Charlotte began to say. Just fire the damn thing, screamed GGIO Vega as he dodged around a bony tentacle. Fine, grumbled the other Ijukas. A wide purple Sero took the enemy hollow in the chest, sending it reeling back. GGIO took the opportunity to zip in, blades readied as he ducked his flailing tentacle at him. He lunged forward, sabers outstretched. His blade sank into the throat of the hollow and he drove them deeper. Then the thing shuddered and then died. GGIO kicked the corpse off as Charlotte elbowed him out of the way. Mine. Hey. Findor Korea's cursed as he dove under the sand again. This hollow had much physical strength, tearing up the sand around him with each shovel like fists. Avirama's help was ineffective since the steel-like feathers kept on being repelled by the massive shell-like extensions the thing had. Avirama, get down here and help me. Findor screamed. The eagle grumbled, but swooped down and tackled the shell-like hollow, grasping the extension on its back. The hollow swore and slammed his fist into the eagle, sending him stumbling back. But that was what Findor needed. The crab Ijukas leapt into an attack, his larger pincer stretching out to cut off the arm of the hollow. The enemy Ijukas screamed as black blood poured out of the wound, but Findor kept on the pressure, snipping him in half with the next blow. Dinner time, boys, Avirama called as they dove in. Later on, after their latest hunt, Naruto sat on a sand dune, watching the cold wind blow sands across the desert. Nearby Avirama and Charlotte argued on who would get to rest on the sole remaining rock they had found. GGIO was scratching himself and Findor had settled down in the sand. Sir, what are you thinking about? GGIO Vega asked him. Oh, just thinking about my past life. Naruto answered casually. You can remember? GGIO sounded surprised. Yes, I know it's rare. Especially among Mainos. Naruto chuckled. Who were you in life? I'm pretty curious. GGIO commented. I was a shinobi in Konoha. Answered Naruto. I've never heard of that place, but, you were a ninja? Like a stealthy assassin? Well, Naruto remembered his orange jumpsuit. Not quite. Should I assume that's how you died in a mission? GGIO asked. I died in battle. But it was no mission. Naruto answered. It was a war. Tell me GGIO, have you ever fought an enemy that refused to die? I mean, not simply refused to die, but literally couldn't die at all, Naruto said, mentally shuddering at the memories of Edo Tensei. What kind of war did you fight? GGIO sounded surprised. Something I hope never to fight again. Naruto sighed. GGIO. As painful as the memories of my death were, I don't ever want to lose them. I don't ever want to lose my humanity. You aren't human anymore, GGIO pointed out. True, but I don't want to become a mindless beast. You know what I thought when I first became a hollow? Naruto asked him. What? Asked GGIO, his curiosity genuinely piqued. I thought this couldn't possibly be the afterlife with this gnawing insane hunger. I'm going to conquer this hunger, GGIO. And then once I do that I'll change things. I'm going to find heaven and I'm going to rule it. Naruto said. Heaven? People say Soul Society's a heaven. From what little I've seen of the Shinigami I don't think T's a heaven I want to live in. Naruto scowled beneath his mask. Look GGIO, it's true we hollows are born from darkness and things like that. It's true we are born to destroy. But we can become something more. I refuse to be some scavenger and cannibal forever. Naruto spoke, but the Ijukas shrugged. Maybe this is my destiny. My life and my friends in Konoha are all dead. Probably centuries dead if I'm guessing correctly. Meanwhile Avirama and Charlotte's argument was heating up. No, I want it. I need to spread my wings. The eagle shoved his comrade. Oh, you did not just mess up my skirt, you pig. Screamed Charlotte, who began to form a Sero. Super magnum awesome great beauty, he began. Charlotte, you idiot. Groaned Findor from below. Sero, the purple Sero went wide as Avirama scrambled out of the way. It impacted into the distance, throwing up a huge cloud of sand. Naruto coughed as he got up. "What's the problem here, you two?" he asked. "I wanted the rock Naruto-sama," Avirama began, but he was cut off by a huge Ryotsu rising nearby. The ground rumbled below then and Naruto leapt away, his followers doing the same as the Sea of Sang rose in a great wave before them. A huge mask with green markings peered out, followed by two immense arms and a large, round body. "Who wakes Cho Neng Po?" the massive hollow rumbled. It looked like some sort of monstrous whale-man. It was big, bigger than the largest Jillian, and even bigger than the massive human buildings Naruto had seen. "Holy shit," Ggio said in awe looking up. "He's huge." "Really?" "Exacta." Findor looked up. "Looks like some lunch," Po rumbled and lashed out with one arm, knocking the entire group back. "Oh hell no, am I getting eaten by this guy?" "Attack," commanded Naruto. "Are you insane? He's huge," sputtered Avirama. "Then we'll all take him down. I have more Ryotsu than he does." "Move," Naruto urged. The eagle took flight while Findor and Charlotte flanked the huge follow. Ggio ran with Naruto towards the nearest fist as it came towards them. Ggio fired off a Sero that impacted the fist as Naruto landed on it, running upwards. "Little worms," grumbled Po as he tried to bring his other arm around to punch Naruto off. But the hollow leapt free and landed on the other arm, dragging his claw up along the arm, ripping a huge wound in the arm. Po groaned and shook his arm, but Naruto remained determined to stay on, hooking his claws deep into the flesh. "You little..." Po's enormous hand came to tear Naruto off when Findor leapt on it and snipped off a pair of fingers. Po screamed and backhanded Finder with his wounded limb, sending the crab flying far into the distance. Naruto took the opportunity to leap up and rip through Po's enormous neck with his claws. Ryotsu trailed into the air as Naruto powered through. A fist tried to pry him off, but Naruto was too fast for him to catch. "Avirama! Sero!" Naruto screamed. The eagle pointed a claw at the enormous hollow and charged bands of energy around it. The Sero smashed right into the throat wound that Naruto had inflicted earlier, tearing it open wider. "Haha, take that you..." Avirama had no time to finish his sentence as Po punched him away. By this time Charlotte fired his own Sero, taking Po in the knee and causing him to stumble over the side. Ggio was disappearing and reappearing with bursts of sonido, stabbing with his blades, but unable to inflict anything than paper cuts to the giant. His fighting style wasn't used to taking on such incredibly huge opponents. "You." Po opened his mouth and green light gathered in there as a Sero charged up. "Not today." Naruto kicked him in the side, causing the Sero to blow up in his face. Po slapped his face in pain and writhed on the ground. Ggio and Charlotte fled from the enormous bulk of the hollow, rather than be crushed. Amidst Po's curses Naruto leapt on top of the being and slammed both claws in the mask. Riryoku filled the air from Naruto's enormous spiritual pressure as he tore a massive crack in the mask. Po yelled as Naruto charged up a pair of Sero in his hands. The familiar roar of a Sero filled the air as a pair of huge red lights tore through Po's mask and head. Finally the massive body stooped its writhing and fell still on the enormous sands of Hueco Mundo. Ggio and Charlotte popped their heads out from the sand dunes to gaze in awe at the massive corpse. "Is it really dead?" Ggio asked. "I'm pretty sure," called Naruto. "Get Findor and Avirama, we've got a feast here." "Yes sir." As his followers went off into the sands to search for their missing brethren, Naruto opened his jaws and dove right into the meat of the hollow. Enormous amounts of reishi filled his body as he devoured more and more. Then suddenly his head snapped up into the air, eyes widening. Ryotsu began to quake and warp around his body. He was lifted up into the air by immense steamers of energy. 100 feet away Findor brought his head up to see a massive crimson light fill everything. "Naruto-sama?" Ggio called as he rushed forward. "This is amazing," came the reply. A new figure stepped forward out of the smoke. Ggio gasped as the immense power that he sensed. This new figure was much like Naruto, except it was human-sized rather than 10 feet tall. It looked like a human made of some sort of flickering white energy. Riryoku flickered like flames from Naruto's armored skin. Black markings ran across the arms, legs and neck of the new hollow. A pair of small horns extended from Naruto's head. More of his blonde hair could be seen. His hollow hole was much smaller now and hardly noticeable. His hands were more like human fingers now, with only slightly pointed talons. This is amazing. I think I've finally reached that level. Naruto repeated. Sir? Charlotte gasped. Yes. This is Vasto Lord, Naruto said. Sir? Ggio asked Naruto hesitantly. Naruto stood in front of a devastated wasteland. In the distance, several enormous rocky formations had been reduced to dust and ashes under his new powers. It had been 3 months since Naruto had become a Vasto Lord. He had spent most of that time training his new abilities and adjusting to a new more humanoid body. He had enormous amounts of Ryotsu now, enough that he could think about developing new techniques to take advantage. Currently he was working on a way in order to replicate the Rasen Shuriken using pure spiritual energy. He had gone through several attempts, all which resulted in the massive destruction that had occurred in front of him. It was shocking really, the amount of power he now wielded. Yes Ggio, he said pleasantly. He found himself shaping up to be more of a leader now. There is someone here to see you. The Tiger Hollow said. The Vasto Lord frowned beneath his mask. It was very rare when someone asked to see him. Who is it? A hollow from Baragan, my lord. Ggio reported. Naruto frowned. He had heard of the self-proclaimed king of Hueco Mundo who ruled over much of that desert land. It was only natural that he would want to meet a new Vasto Lord. He had been expecting the call for a while. Tell him to come forward. Naruto instructed. A minute later a tall, bulky hollow that resembled a bear came forward. King Baragan requests you present yourself to him at the Palace of Las Noches. A king? A palace? I would have noticed something like that. The entirety of Hueco Mundo is Las Noches. The ceiling is the sky. The bear stated. So speaks King Baragan. So he's an egomaniac, Naruto thought. He sighed and got up. Very well, I will come with you to your king. He said. Very well, shall we? The bear-like hollow began. Wait, Naruto held up a hand. I must speak to my followers. Without waiting for an answer he turned to the small group of Ajukas. The Vasto Lord sighed. Remain here at the hideout. I will come to you if the meeting goes well. If I do not return then I suggest you get up and move out. Is that understood? He asked. They bowed. Yes Naruto-sama. A day later he arrived at the Palace of Las Noches. The journey had mostly been silent with Naruto having very little desire to talk to one of Baragan's lackeys and the bear-like hollow being mostly silent. Occasionally groups of hollow would appear, but they were almost always scared off by Naruto's monstrous Ryotsu. At last he arrived at what looked like a set of ruins. A pair of massive Ajukas stepped to the sides, heads bowed, revealing an empty broken gate. If this place was a castle, it looked like a broken-down husk of one. He is waiting, the bear-like hollow said, before moving away from him. Naruto shrugged and entered. He walked past towering white pillars that stretched high into the sky. He walked on broken red tiles, up the stairs and past a line of Ajuka's guards who stared blankly at him, their heads bowed and their bodies kneeling. Welcome. The voice was hollow and echoing, as if coming from someone in a cave. Naruto looked up. Naruto knew Baragan Luisenbarn was one of the oldest and most powerful Vasto Lord in the world of Hueco Mundo, but he had not been prepared for Baragan's appearance. He was human-sized, but he took the appearance of a human skeleton. Not skeleton-like, but an actual skeleton. Naruto could see the bones quite clearly. He wore a gold crown on his head and a purple robe with black fur trim over his body. Naruto couldn't see a hollow hole in sight. There was a scar over Baragan's right eye socket. Welcome to my castle, Las Noches. He repeated. Ah, yes, the castle with the skies as a roof. Your servant told me about that. Naruto said. Indeed, I am Baragan Luisenbarn, the God King of Hueco Mundo. That's an impressive title, King of Hueco Mundo. Naruto said. The skull tilted slightly. It's only natural that I wield such a title. Word of your existence has come to me through the lesser life forms of Hueco Mundo. I wish to see you for myself. You are indeed a Vasto Lord. Indeed I am, Naruto agreed. Although, pardon me your majesty, what is your purpose in bringing me here? He asked. To offer you a choice. You can either serve me or you can go away where I cannot see you. However, there is no place in Hueco Mundo I cannot see. Baragan stated. Naruto stroked his chin. Are you implying you have some sort of advanced dojutsu? He asked. Excuse me? Well, you said, there is no place in Hueco Mundo I cannot see. Therefore you can see literally everywhere in Hueco Mundo? Tell me, what is happening 100 miles to the south? What about 50 miles to the east? Naruto asked. Baragan's skeletal hand tightened on his axe. It would be unwise to mock me. However, I will give you a chance to retract your statements by serving me. Oh no, I have a better idea. Naruto flexed his hands. I am going to kill you and become king of Hueco Mundo. Then I will make this place a heaven. The place was silent for a few moments as the masses of Ijukas held their breath. Baragan laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Kill him. He ordered his army. A massive monkey-like hollow charged in from Naruto's right while a lizard-like one came from the left. Naruto flexed his hands and swords of crimson energy appeared. He blurred and the ape-like hollow was cut in half while the lizard one was beheaded. Whoops, Naruto said sarcastically as the bodies hit the floor. My sable's hematanyo, sage blades, slipped out. Another bestial hollow came from behind. Abruptly one of the swords disappeared as Naruto fired a sero behind him. The hollow and 3 others behind him died in a backwash of Ryotsu. The rest had scarcely time to react as Naruto was upon them. His Riryoku swords flashed as he gutted another and beheaded 2 more Ijukas. Naruto was especially proud of this technique, something he developed to provide a proper cutting edge to his techniques. Something to replace his claws. He hacked down hollow after hollow that came charging at him in a whirlwind of gore until Baragan's voice rang across the castle. Enough. Withdraw. Abruptly, as quickly as they came, Baragan's followers withdrew. I see at this point you've recognized that only you have the power to kill me. Naruto commented. Baragan rose from his throne, grasping a massive black axe that was attached by several gold chains to his hand. Don't get cocky, brat. However, I suppose I must thank you. I was getting quite bored before your arrival. In fact, I planned to divide my army in 2 and have them kill each other before you arrived. Rather disgusting, Naruto commented. Baragan laughed. It doesn't matter. You're going to be killed by the God King of Hueco Mundo. With that, he leapt to attack. The axe collided with Naruto's Riryoku blades in a clash of Ryotsu. Baragan was slowly pushing Naruto back as the younger Vasto Lord leapt high in the air, flying up and charging a sero in one hand before letting it loose. Baragan dodged the black, the red energy creating a massive explosion where his throne once was. He rose up in the air, axe blazing with energy as he struck at where Naruto had last been in the smoke. But it only cut through air. A Riryoku sword headed through the smoke to strike at Baragan's head, but somehow the arm slowed down. Naruto's eyes widened behind his mask as he saw the axe flash and his left hand come away. He sped away quickly, noticing his arm rapidly rotting away. His other Riryoku blade flashed and severed the arm at the shoulder. Naruto fell back, black blood spurting from the stump. Baragan emerged from the smoke and shouldered his axe as he watched the rest of Naruto's arm fade away. That is my ability. Time. All things are equal before it. And now you have lost an arm, the Vasto Lord said. Really? Naruto asked as Ryotsu gathered at the stump and a new arm pushed itself out of the stump and reformed into a new limb. It seems fine to me. Although I must admit, that is a very powerful ability you wield. Said Naruto. If you possess high-speed regeneration then I'll simply have to cut off the head. Snarled Baragan as he lunged forward again. Meanwhile Naruto's mind ran through the previous attack. Baragan possessed some sort of time dilation field that slowed down his movements. Therefore, close quarters probably should be avoided. It was time to play the long-range game. Naruto extinguished his blade and charged up a pair of sero. He twisted around in midair and fired both of them at Baragan who attempted to dodge. The king of Hueco Mundo moved out of the way of one, but was caught in the blast of another. Smoke cleared and Baragan looked around. His bones had been blackened by the attack. But overall he was fine. It was rare he encountered a sero that actually could hurt him, let alone survive through his time dilation field. He turned around to see another sero take him in the face. Baragan staggered back only to see Naruto charging another sero. The king of Hueco Mundo growled and began to charge his own sero in one bony finger. He pointed at Naruto. Die! An onrushing wave of crimson energy rushed Naruto who let out his own sero. The two blasts met and a backwash of energy ripped over Las Noches. Ijukas fled from the mere backwash of the attacks, the immense Ryotsu in the area suffocating lesser hollows. Smoke and ash filled the entire castle as Naruto looked around. Then Baragan reappeared in front of him. Naruto scarcely had time to ignite an energy sword before Baragan's axe crashed into his blade. Naruto's sword began to fade under the decaying power of Baragan's axe as the Hollow King laughed. "This is what happens to fools who resist me," he proclaimed. Naruto lashed out, kicking the king in the face. Growling with rage, Baragan sent a powerful blow that hurled Naruto back through the remnants of the castle below. "Enough of this. I am done playing with you. Respira," Baragan rasped. A cloud of some sort of dark mist spread out before him. Naruto looked up for a moment before he was utterly consumed by the dark mist. "What an idiot to challenge me." Baragan shook his head. Then he took a Sero from behind. He whirled around in shock. "You, how? Gemelos Sonido. A duplicate made of me. I made it while I was hidden in the rubble." "You attacked a fake," Naruto said. "You insolent whelp," Baragan began. "I think it's time to end this." Naruto cut him off. "What, are you joking, you puny insect? No, not at all. This will be the first time using this attack in a combat situation," Naruto stated. He brought one hand up and Ryotsu gathered around him and then simply exploded. Baragan stepped back in shock as he saw a massive pillar of Ryotsu stretch into the sky. What he was feeling was incredible. He couldn't believe it. The Ryotsu that he was feeling was matching his own. No, it was exceeding it. "Impossible," he screamed. "Tell me, King of Hueco Mundo. How exactly do you age air?" Naruto asked. In one arm Ryotsu wrapped around his hand in a circular formation until what looked like some sort of bladed star of pure air and reishi came into being. Baragan didn't answer. He began to spew out more dark mist. "Cortador de la Tormenta, Stormcutter," Naruto said and threw the bladed disc. It whipped across the sands of Hueco Mundo faster than any Ijukas could track. Baragan fired his Respira at the thing, but it was fruitless. The thing was made of some sort of strange wind. The Respira couldn't age it fast enough. This was impossible, Baragan thought in the last moments of his life. The disc tore through his Respira, growing smaller, but still strong. The only reason why Baragan could even track it at this point was because of his time powers. But even his powers couldn't save him. In another moment the disc was upon him and Baragan, God King of Hueco Mundo, was torn to shreds. Silence filled the battlefield as the survivors of Baragan's army looked upon in shock as Naruto Uzumaki slowly floated down. He touched the ground lightly and walked over to the edge of the castle to observe the few survivors. The white and black Hollow cocked his head to the side. "The God King of Hueco Mundo is quite dead. I trust I have no objections to me seizing rule?" he asked, amplifying his voice across the castle. One Hollow scraped forward, shaking with fear. "My king, what is your name?" Naruto laughed. "Silly me. I am Naruto Uzumaki. I am seeking heaven." Then it came, from the throats of scores of Hollows. Fists beat against chests as the Hollows bellowed out the name of their new ruler. "Naruto! Naruto! Naruto!" Naruto threw his head back and basked in the glory and praise. "Excuse me," a polite voice came behind. There was a swishing sound and Naruto turned around. 3 men appeared in the middle of the ruined castle. One was a tall, handsome man with glasses. His demeanor looked frankly rather nerdy to Naruto. Another was a dark-skinned man with his hair in braids. He wore a white visor across his eyes. The last was a silver-haired man with an unnerving smile. But they all wore black with white haori. Naruto's eyes took in their swords and lack of masks. "You obviously are Shinigami. Have you come here to purify us?" he asked, tightening his fists. "No, not quite. I came here to see King Baragan. I arrived just as you finished him off. It was quite impressive. I also heard your name. However, it is rude not to introduce myself. I am Sosuke Aizen," said the brown-haired man. "Sosuke Aizen." Naruto rolled the name of his tongue. "What do you want?" he asked. The man smiled. His demeanor was polite, almost painfully so. It was certainly an odd sign to see in Hueco Mundo. He gave a disarming smile and drew his sword from its scabbard. Naruto tensed at the sight of that. "I mean no harm. I simply wish for you to look upon my sword. Kyoka Suigetsu. Aizen held the blade before him. Naruto looked upon it suspiciously as if it were some sort of trick. "What is this all about?" the Vasto Lord asked. "I wish to ask your majesty a question. That is, if you are the new king of Hueco Mundo." Aizen questioned. "I suppose you could consider me a king at the moment. Are you satisfied with your life at the moment? Have you ever felt that the world was not the way it should be? Do you wish to achieve higher greatness? I shall help you. Obey me. If you do, I will give you greater power." "Great power?" asked Naruto incredulously. "My research to transform hollows into Shinigami and Shinigami into hollows is almost complete. By removing the boundaries between the two opposing states of being, one can achieve higher greatness. You could step forward into a new world," Aizen told him. Naruto absorbed the information. Could this be what he was searching for? An end to the hunger of a hollowed existence? "Can you end it? End the hunger that plagues me and my kind?" Naruto asked. "Ah, your hunger for souls. I am told that even a natural evolution into an Arrancar removes that urge with the benefits of a human body and a Shinigami side," Aizen said. Naruto was silent for a few moments. "I will join you, but I can't do it as a follower. I want to be an equal. I want to help you as a teammate. I want to seek heaven. Not this twisted purgatory here. If I can't find heaven, then I'll try and make heaven here." Naruto gestured to Las Noches. Aizen frowned. "That's unfortunate. God cannot have an equal." Naruto questioned. "I intend to stand in heaven as God." "Stand in heaven as God? Are you insane? I just killed a fool with a god complex." Naruto gestured to the fading remains of Baragan. Aizen smiled. Then Naruto's world was filled with blood. He looked around in shock. What the? Baragan's former army was shredded, absolutely gone. And it was all done by the two Shinigami that had accompanied Aizen. "What is this?" demanded Naruto. "My Zanpakuto's special ability is complete hypnosis," Aizen told him. "Complete hypnosis?" Naruto asked. "Once you gaze upon my blade, I control all 5 senses," said Aizen. A chill ran up Naruto's spine. "Genjutsu." He formed a seal. Kai, your efforts to presumably break my illusions are futile. They are unbreakable," Aizen told him. "You bastard." Naruto raged, lunging at Aizen with a Riryoku sword in one hand. But he was stopped as a tidal wave of Ryotsu washed over him, crushing him to his knees. The two Shinigami reappeared on either side of Naruto. Zanpakuto pointed at his neck. "I'm afraid I only told you a half-truth before. You don't have a choice whether to join or not, my friend." Aizen smiled. It was like Madara all over again. Hatred rose in Naruto's body, but he reluctantly bowed his head. I will serve you." Aizen gave a cold smile. "Excellent," he said. Meanwhile Naruto closed his eyes. "Aizen, I vow I will break free of your chains. I will not be your slave." He had been taken and bound within the ruins of Las Noches. Aizen told him that this was standard procedure for the change. He had an item called the Haugoku, something that the promised would change Naruto into something greater. The change had come swiftly. He felt himself welling up inside as he felt his mask crack and his body reform. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't. The bindings restrained him too tightly. So he was forced to sit in silence. And then he was whisked away. He was standing in a white sewer. Everything was white. The walls, the pipes, the floor, everything. Naruto stumbled around, looking down upon himself. His eyes widened. He looked like a human once more. He was wearing his old black and orange jumpsuit. On his belt was a kunai pouch. He was even wearing the same sandals before he died. He felt his forehead, feeling the cool touch of metal that signaled his forehead protector. "Is this?" he asked. "No," I voice said. "This is your inner world." Naruto whirled around to see himself. It was himself as a hollow. He recognized the white skin, the pale flames that licked off his flesh and the black markings that covered his body. He saw the hollow hole in his gut. He finally did get to see what his mask looked like. It was skull-like and molded tightly to his face, the teeth rather small and fang-like. A pair of empty eyes stared at him as he took a step forward in amazement. "You're my hollow powers," Naruto guessed. "Correct," the being began. "You're changing. You're gaining a human form. Your hollow powers are instead being sealed in the shape of a Zanpakuto." A sword. A blade appeared in the hollow's hand. It was a katana, similar to the one that Naruto had seen Aizen used. Its blade was silver, with both its guard and handle a stark black in contrast. The hollow slammed the blade into the ground and looked at him. Just as a Shinigami has a Zanpakuto spirit inside of them. I am your Zanpakuto spirit. However, instead of being part of your soul, I am the embodiment of your hollow powers. Similar yet different. This was his power? What is your name? Naruto asked. Huracan, the hollow said. I am here to offer you a choice. Naruto raised his eyebrows. What kind of choice? You are taking a human form. You can choose to retain your high-speed regeneration, or you can choose to sacrifice that and gain more power and Ryotsu. Huracan said. Naruto didn't hesitate. Regeneration, it saved me when I was living and when I was a hollow. If I didn't have it, I would be dead from a Chidori to the heart. Huracan looked at him blankly. So be it. Then there was a flash of light and then splitting headache and Naruto was free of the bindings. He blinked and looked around. He was in Las Noches once again. The place was being rebuilt under Aizen's orders. In the distance Naruto could see hollow laborers rebuilding the walls and ceiling. Naruto Uzumaki, welcome into the Espada, came Aizen's pleasant voice. Naruto turned in time to see Aizen place a strange object back inside his robe. Naruto got up and examined himself. He was human to his shock. Or almost. His white bone armor was gone, instead he had human skin, like he was alive. He looked human save for the hollow hole in his stomach. It was quite small and it rested on the upper abdomen. He ran his hand over his neck, feeling the bone necklace there and then to his forehead, feeling the crown there. His mask was broken, and apparently all that remained was the crown and necklace. He glanced around and saw a sheathed katana next to him. Naruto recognized it as Huracan. He quickly grasped it and drew the blade, feeling the power. This was his. Then a sharp breeze came through the half-built castle. Naruto shivered. Can I get some clothes? Years passed and Naruto watched the White Army come into being. Hollows from across Hueco Mundo were taken and transformed into a Rancor by the thing Aizen called the Haugoku. It was something that Aizen used to break the boundaries between Hollow and Shinigami to create a new being. Naruto was grateful in a sense that the hunger no longer tormented him. But he still resented Aizen. Because no matter how long a leash he had, he was still a slave to Aizen and Naruto had no illusions about the man's ruthlessness. He met the two Shinigami that had accompanied Aizen. Kanami Tusen, Naruto learned, was essentially a black Sasuke. Behind his mask of peace and justice he yearned for revenge against Soul Society for some sort of past slight. Ichimaru Jin reminded Naruto in some way of himself. However, Naruto had a truly hard time reading the man's emotions behind the frozen smile that served as the man's mask. He seemed friendly enough in his own way, but Naruto knew most of all that foxes could be deceiving. His new state of being was a source of interest for him. He was no longer fully a hollow, but a hybrid, as much Shinigami as hollow. He had a Zanpakuto now and a human form, although he could return to his former self if he released. Aizen inducted him into the officer corps of his army. To command the army of Arankar he created an elite unit called the Espada, who only had the very best of the hollow in their ranks. The best Naruto could have as a comparison was these Espada as Junin with Numeros as Chunin and Aizen as Kage. These Espada could select other Arankar beneath them to serve as Fracione. Junin usually didn't have person subordinates. Naruto had managed to get his own followers with him and he had them all transformed into Arankar. They formed his new Fracione. Each took a human form and a sealed Zanpakuto with their hollow powers. Naruto still shuddered when he saw Charlotte's naked body emerge from the bindings. That was something he didn't need to see. Ggio took the form of a young teenager. His blade, a squared-off katana, was called Tigra Astoke. He was the fastest and had the most Ryotsu of Naruto's Fracione in addition to being the finest unarmed combatant Naruto had. He had a battle form he could access, temporarily changing his release form into a larger, more muscular version of himself. Findor took the form of a long-haired man. He possessed a rather unique mask that acted as a power limiter. He could chip away at it and increase his powers if he chose to. Eventually the mask would regenerate if he willed it. His Zanpakuto was called Pinza Aguda. Ggio may have been the most powerful, but Findor wasn't too far behind. He served as the closest thing Naruto had to a second command, the blonde Arankar being collected and intelligent. Avirama took the form of a tattooed man. He was undoubtedly the most battle-loving of Naruto's servants. He also had a tendency to walk around shirtless, exposing his tattoos. His Zanpakuto was named Agila, and he had a similar battle form to Ggio that he could access by cutting his tattoos. Charlotte was the last of the lot and the most flamboyant. He took the form of a muscular man who tried to pass himself off as feminine. Naruto almost gouged out his eyes after he saw Charlotte release for the first time. His Zanpakuto was named Reina de Rosas. Naruto himself was technically ranked 3rd in the Espada, but he held the title of Segunda due to the way the Espada were ranked. They went from 0 to 9, rather 1 to 10. They were ranked by Ryotsu. Naruto himself replaced another Arrancar, a naturally created one. Each Espada was assigned a different aspect of death to govern over. Naruto's was belief. He supposed it was appropriate. In life Naruto held tightly to his ideals. In death he held a strong belief that the hunger could be ended and heaven could be found. He believed that he could be free of Aizen's chains. But privately Naruto thought the whole aspects of death thing was stupid anyway. Take for example that rookie, Zamari. How did he embody intoxication? Naruto had never even seen him drink. And any Espada could embody destruction. Granted Grimmjow was very destructive, but he was hardly the only one. Naruto and the new Haugoku breed of Arrancar were in general stronger than the naturally created ones, who were shoved off into the Tres Sifas as Privaran Espada. However, there were a few exceptions. One was Naruto's superior, Coyote Stark. Stark was one of the most unusual hollows that Naruto had met. Lazy, mild-mannered and fairly pleasant, he was the very opposite of what Naruto imagined the Primera to be. They got along fairly well and shared a mutual respect. Honestly, the Ryotsu gap between them was quite small. Naruto could probably challenge Stark for the rank of Primera if he wanted to. He didn't. Neither he or Stark really cared about Aizen's ranks. Yami Largo was his other sometime superior. In his sealed form he was the Decima Espada, while in his released form he was the Sero Espada. But Naruto felt the whole ranking system was rather misleading. The Espada were ranked by Ryotsu and not by combat skills. Ryotsu was a huge factor in fights, but it was not the absolute end-all. Yami had the most Ryotsu in his released form, that was true, but he lacked the intelligence and skill to use it properly. Despite his rank, Naruto felt that could take him in a fight. Even the Ryotsu gap between Yami, Stark and Naruto was rather small, to be truthful. Time passed and more Espada came into the ranks, but none could replace Naruto's position. Despite all of those changes, Naruto still had one ambition burning in his chest. Free himself from Aizen, one way or another. "Why hello there," came a voice ahead of Haribel. The newly instated Quatra looked up. It had been mere days since she had been made into one of Aizen's Arrancar. She served a greater master now, someone more powerful than her. It was an unusual concept, one that was going to take time to get used to. She adjusted quickly to her human form, having a humanoid one even before she had been changed. The hardest changes were on her three Fraccion, who had animal-like forms before they had broken their masks. "Who the hell are you?" Mila Rose took out her Zanpakuto, Leona at the sight of the two men near the end of the hallway. One was a blonde-haired young man in the white and black style that Aizen had assigned to all of his subordinates. His hollow mask remnant took the form of a crown and a necklace. On his cheeks were 3 black markings like whiskers on either cheek. He had an amused look on his face. He wore the white hakama pants of the Arrancar with a long-sleeved shirt over it. He wore a long coat over that. His Zanpakuto was sheathed at his side. "How dare you speak to Naruto-sama like that?" the other young man said. He was a black-haired youth with a long slim ponytail. His hollow mask took the form of a skull on top of his head and he clutched a squared-off blade with one hand. "Relax, Ggio," the man said. He looked amused. The black-haired man hesitantly lowered his Zanpakuto. The other blonde-haired man opened his shirt, exposing the gothic 2 inches emblazoned there. Segunda-sama." Mila Rose's eyes widened in shock. "I'm rather surprised he managed to recruit you, Shark Empress," the Segunda said. "And he got your followers as well," Naruto remarked. Mila Rose, "Sunday to Sunday, Apache, leave us," Haribel commanded. "But Haribel-sama," Mila Rose commanded. "Now," Haribel emphasized. Grumbling, the three Fraccione disappeared with a burst of sonido. Naruto looked towards Ggio. Now Ggio, don't be rude, go and give those ladies some company. Naruto told him. It was a rather thinly veiled order to leave Harabel and him alone. Ggio sighed and disappeared. You know of me, but I don't know of you. Harabel said. You encountered me many years ago as an Ajukas. I asked you if the hunger of a Vasto Lord ever disappeared. Harabel nodded. I remember you know. I let you leave because there was something special about you. Were you the same so-called king of Las Noches? Harabel said. I was king for a grand total of 2 minutes after I killed Baragan. But whatever, it's a meaningless title now that Aizen's ruling. Naruto laughed. Aizen-sama. Harabel corrected. Oh, that's right, forgive me for not sharing your enthusiasm. Naruto replied. You dislike him, is it because of some sort of wounded pride? The female Espada asked. No, dislike is too strong of a word. I was apprehensive of him ever since he recruited me by force. I'm going to assume he never recruited you by force, did he? Naruto asked. No, I went along willingly. He ended the hunger. I owe him much. Harabel told him. Oh, he ended the hunger. I thank him for that. He gave me power, although I didn't really need power. But I can't fully put my trust in a man who forced me into his army when I asked to be equals with him. Naruto told her. Aizen-sama is strong, and the weak follow the strong or else they die. That is how hollows work. Harabel told him. Don't give me that bullshit. We aren't hollows anymore no matter how much we like to pretend otherwise. We have a Shinigami side in is. We are as much Shinigami as hollow at this point. You don't believe me? Naruto cocked his head and reappeared in front of her with Sonido. To her credit, Harabel didn't budge. Should I? Let me ask you a question. If I went after your Fraccione right now and cut them down without mercy, would you protect them? Even if I, your superior officer and you're better in terms of strength, ordered you to let me? Naruto asked her. Tiburon flashed out of its sheath to rest at Naruto's neck. I would protect them. To her surprise, the blonde-haired male chuckled. That's a good answer. You are protecting your precious people. That's not a very hollow thing to do, but as I said before, we are not hollows anymore and you weren't much of a normal hollow before becoming an Arrancar. Naruto told her before he reappeared behind her with Sonido. I like you, Tia Harabel. I think I'll look forward to working with you. Hey, greeted Neliel to Odell Schwenk. Years had passed since Naruto had first been recruited into Aizen's army. Las Noches had been completely rebuilt and the Espada were completed. However, only a few Vasto Lord were present. Ideally, Aizen wanted an entire army of Vasto Lord. Naruto knew Neliel was one of the Arrancar assigned to search for them. She was a tall, green-haired woman wearing a white pantsuit and tunic. Her figure was slender and well endowed. Her hollow mask remnant took form of a broken helmet on top of her head and she had a red markings across her nose. Naruto glanced at her. The Tercera, I believe? What business do you have here? He asked. You seemed lonely. I wanted to meet you. She explained. If you want to meet someone lonely, then check on Stark. Naruto suggested. I've already met with him. But he just sleeps all day. She shrugged. Plus I wanted to get some time away from Neutra's attempts to fight me. I don't understand that man. Naruto shook his head. Is he suicidal? The Octava stands no chance against someone 5 ranks higher than him. Why the hell is he attacking you? He claims to want to prove that men are superior to women. But I think he's suicidal. He urges me to kill him several times. Neliel sighed. Then why don't you? Naruto asked. Because what Neutra is doing isn't how a warrior acts. It's how a beast acts. We are not beasts anymore. We have control over our instincts now. We can conduct ourselves rationally. Neliel explained. Naruto perked up. I believe that too. Tell me, Neliel, why do you fight? The Tercera put a finger to her lips. Well, I fight for a lot of reasons really. But most important to me is to protect my comrades. She said. Naruto nodded. I like that answer. When I was a hollow I looked upon Hueco Mundo and despaired. How the hell could this be the afterlife? I want to change, to get rid of the hunger and make this place a heaven. And did you? Neliel. Aizen kicked my ass. Naruto chuckled. I will never understand what you see in that man. He gave us these powers, without him we would still be hollows in the desert. He's shown himself to be a good leader so far. Neliel protested. I agree with his goals, but I dislike his methods. Neliel, I was forced to join against my will after Aizen bullied me. I wanted to work as equals but he chose to enslave me. Did he tell you that? Naruto asked her. There was silence for a few moments. No, Neliel admitted. Well, anyway, like I said, I agree with Aizen on some points. There are problems that need to be addressed. Even in Soul Society there is some messed up shit. I've talked with Tusen and Ichimaru. Did you know they have poverty in Soul Society? Entire districts full of them. Poor people in their so-called heaven, it's ridiculous. Naruto commented. What are you going to do now? Aid Aizen-sama? Asked Neliel curiously. For now. It was on Neliel's next mission that Naruto agreed to tag. One of Aizen's main priorities was to search for the Vasto Lord. Among the Espada, only 4 Arrancar were Vasto Lord: Naruto, Haribel, Stark and Neliel. The rest were Adichas or Jillian. Aizen, however, wanted more. I'm bored as hell, Neutra Gilga said. Naruto didn't really like Neutra. He found him to be a reckless, abrasive asshole most of the time. But Naruto tolerated him, even if he was only a comrade. In fact, Naruto respected the man's insane determination even against suicidal odds. That was probably the only thing he respected. They had been walking in the deserts of Hueco Mundo for hours. Occasionally a group of Hollow would try and attack them, but they would easily be slaughtered by the trio of Espada. It had been several hours since the last attack. Don't worry, we'll find the Vasto Lord. I'm sure of it, said Neliel. Her attempts to encourage Neutra failed as he merely scowled at her. He hefted the large scythe axe weapon on his back threateningly. For such a slender man he wielded the weapon with immense strength. Hey Neliel, I think we've found it, said Naruto. Shit, that's creepy, remarked Neutra. For once Naruto had to agree with him. Before him lay a series of large mountainous structures. Black rocks littered the field. Skeletal trees poked in and around the place, casting dark shadows everywhere. It was eerie. Yo, anybody there? Neutra shouted. He waved his Zanpakuto. Come out Vasto Lord, don't be scared, he declared. There was silence for almost a minute before Naruto sighed and started to speak before a new voice cut him off. What are you and who is this idiot? A cold voice spoke. Out from the shadows emerged a bat-winged hollow. Its chest was pale alabaster and its arms and lower half were covered in dark fur. His mask was gaunt and sharp, with a pair of green markings on it that resembled tears. A pair of horns lifted up from the mask. A long spade-tipped tail lashed out behind it. Overall it was quite humanoid. Definitely a Vasto Lord. I'm assuming you are a Vasto Lord called the Demon Bat? Naruto asked. You haven't answered my question, said the new Hollow. TCH, you think you're tough? I'll take you on. Neutra leapt into action, his Zanpakuto scything through the air. The Vasto Lord didn't move until the last minute, until it blurred out of the way and sent Neutra flying into a nearby mountain. Apologies for my companion's behavior. We are Arrancar serving in the army of Sosuke Aizen. We are here to recruit you. Neliel said. I do not desire to join trash. The Hollow stated. Don't ignore me. Neutra screamed and stuck out his tongue. Yellow light gathered there and he fired off a golden Sero at the Vasto Lord. The bat-like Hollow turned and then palmed it, sending the blast off to arc into a mountain. A massive explosion sent shards of rock everywhere. Both Neliel and Naruto shielded their faces. What is this Sosuke Aizen going to do? Questioned the Hollow. Make you like us. Break off our mask and gain Shinigami powers. Naruto explained. The bat-like Hollow glanced as the charging Neutra. Is he an Arrancar? Tragically yes. Santa Teresa descended, but the Hollow dodged it and kicked Neutra in the chest, sending him flying back. The Hollow then formed a spear of pure Ryotsu in one hand and stabbed Neutra through the head, lifting the body up. Goddammit, Neutra shouted, his eye patch falling away to reveal the lance stuck through his hollow hole. He pushed himself off panting. The bat-like Hollow stood there emotionlessly, still holding the energy spear. Naruto was intrigued. Only the most powerful Hollows could creature weapons out of pure Ryotsu and shape it like that. This one was both intelligent and powerful. Neliel would definitely try and recruit this one. Pray, Santa Teresa, Neutra screamed, lifting his Zanpakuto into the air. Naruto was surprised. He must be truly pissed to release against a non-Arrancar. Smoke and sand whipped around him and 4 massive scythes came slicing out of the darkness. Naruto inspected Neutra's resurrection. He had never seen him release. It was rather impressive really. His axe had reshaped itself and he had giant two new horns that looked like a crescent moon from his head. An X-shaped yellow mark was on his face. He had 4 arms now, each arm covered in some sort of armor. His jacket had opened up to expose his chest. Each arm held a large scythe with a yellow tassel at each end. In all the form looked dangerous. Neutra grinned and rushed at the bat like hollow, scythes blazing. The Vasto Lord defended himself with his spear, parrying and striking back with a flurry of blows. For several seconds they appeared to be equally matched before Neutra knocked the bat like hollow into the mountain with one blow. "Ha, you can't match me. Die." Neutra laughed. A tail lashed out faster than he could follow and knocked him into the sand below. Neutra twisted around as a green sword lance lopped off one arm. Black blood spurted to the ground as Neutra fell away, panting from the pain. "What the?" he began. A wing flapped away the dust, revealing the black form of the hollow once more. "This fight is pointless and has no meaning." "You have no meaning," the hollow said tonelessly. "Don't mock me." A new arm spurted out of Neutra's stump. "I'll tear you apart." Then the hollow moved at such speeds that only Neliel and Naruto could track him. The bat-like hollow's claws hand-palmed Neutra's face and sent the Octava into a mountain. A massive imprint cracked over the mountainside as the bat-like hollow created another energy spear, drilling it through Neutra's shoulder. The Octava screamed in agony. "If this is the strength of Sosuke Aizen, then I do not want it," the hollow said. Then a hand took the spear barehanded. The hollow looked on in surprise as Naruto casually kicked the bat-like hollow away a dozen feet. The hollow regained flight in midair, staring at Naruto with green eyes. "I apologize, but can't allow you to kill him. You have sentiments for him?" "Not really, but he is a comrade and I protect my comrades," Naruto said. "I have already defeated him. If you are around the same strength, victory is impossible." The bat-like hollow's spear arm fell away into the sand. Naruto stood several feet away, Huracan extended and blood dripping off it. The bat-like hollow did not cry out in pain. Instead it looked down calmly at the stump. "Naruto, we need him intact," Neliel scolded. "Impressive, none have injured me so quickly like that in this form," the hollow stated as a new arm shot out from the stump. "Relax Neliel, he can regenerate." Naruto chuckled. "You couldn't have known that." She chided him. "What can I say?" Naruto shrugged. "Do not ignore your opponent," the bat-like hollow stated, pointing a finger and firing off a green Sero at Naruto. The Segunda merely sliced the thing in half casually. The bat-like hollow stared in disbelief at the feat. With a burst of sonido, Naruto disappeared and held his Zanpakuto to the throat of the hollow. "The man you defeated was the Octava Espada. I am the Segunda. I am far stronger than he is. Do you acknowledge my strength, hollow?" Naruto asked. "Yes," the hollow replied blankly, still in shock. "You can acquire strength like his if you join us. You will gain great power," Neliel promised. Before the hollow could reply, Neutra finally freed himself from the mountain and came charging at the hollow, bloody murder on his face. "Nobody humiliates me like that," he roared. Neliel sighed and disappeared in a burst of sonido. A sharp blow to the back of the head knocked out the Octava on the ground. His resurrection faded away into the massive axe-like weapon. "He is an idiot. Why do you allow him to live?" the hollow asked. "As I said before, he's my comrade. And hopefully you will become one too. Now will you join us?" Naruto asked. Naruto watched as Aizen finished the binding spell on the bat-like hollow and formed the Kido Cube. The leader of Hueco Mundo raised the Haugoku and activated it, sending Ryotsu over the figure in the cube. Naruto knew what was happening. Beneath the bindings, the bat-like hollow was breaking its mask and forming into something new. It was being offered a choice between power and regeneration. It was meeting its Zanpakuto spirit. After a moment the cube broke and a new figure revealed itself. It was a human male, with ashen skin. He was shorter than Naruto by half a head and he had messy dark hair. His features were cold and smooth, like marble. He had two tear-like markings beneath his eyes. His hollow remnant was a broken helmet with a single horn from it. His hollow hole was located in his sternum and was roughly the size of Naruto's own. He stood up and grabbed his Zanpakuto, a katana with a green sheath. He was unashamed of his nakedness. "Tell me your name, new comrade?" Aizen asked. "Ulquiorra Cipher." The newborn Arrancar replied tonelessly. Naruto took note of his power. Definitely Espada material. Aizen was silent for a few moments before he chanted another spell. A gothic, 5 inches burned itself into the chest of the new hollow. "You are now the Quinto Espada of my army." Aizen turned to face the Segunda, a fatherly smile on his lips. "Yeah?" Naruto said casually. "Please educate Ulquiorra on the life of an Arrancar." "Why me?" Naruto asked. "The Primera is not sufficiently motivated to do an adequate job. The Cero is not smart enough, the Tercera is on a mission of her own, and the Quatra is also new. Suffice to say you are the only one that outranks him at the moment." Aizen said. "Sure Aizen-sama." Naruto sighed and walked over to Ulquiorra, who stared back at him emotionlessly. "You mind putting some clothes on?" "Of course Naruto-sama, don't call me that." Naruto sighed. He got enough of that from his Fracione. Ulquiorra, as Naruto learned, was a nihilist. Naruto's quarters were located in the second tower. The quarters consisted of a massive central living room with 5 separate rooms of the Espada and his Fracione and a kitchen and bathroom, along with several spare rooms used for training. Right now Ulquiorra followed Naruto up the stairs of the tower until they looked out of a balcony into the white sands of Las Noches. Naruto took notice of Haribel standing, arms crossed under her breasts as he looked down. Below Naruto's Fracione sparred with Haribel's. Charlotte engaged Mila Rose in a sword duel. Findor Koreas fought Apache and Avirama battled Sunday to Sunday. So far none had released yet, but Naruto sensed it would be soon. "This is the Quattro Espada, our Shark Empress, Tia Haribel." "Tia, this is our new Quinto, Ulquiorra Cipher," the Segunda said. "A pleasure." Haribel nodded. Ulquiorra gave a slight bow. "Who were those Arrancar? I thought the Numeros had separate barracks." Ulquiorra asked. "Fracione, one of the privileges of the Espada. We can select any Numeros to serve as our personal soldiers and servants." "I don't see the point." The pale Espada admitted. "Point to what?" questioned the Segunda. "Fracione. Explain. Having others serve under you. All my life those weaker than me have seemed to been trash. Only the strong are worthy of respect. That was a good philosophy as a hollow. But we are not hollows anymore. I still retain a..." "Not like that," Naruto interrupted. "We are now half Shinigami. You broke your mask. We are hybrids now with Shinigami powers. We can reason now. We can feel emotions. Hollows feel no emotion. We both know that's a lie. I felt rage, joy, hatred, despair, confusion and more as a hollow." Naruto challenged. "Then I do not feel emotion. Not as a hollow have I ever felt emotion." Ulquiorra stated. "Really? I once had a comrade like that. You still have not answered my question. Why do you value them if they are much weaker than you?" "Simple. They are comrades. They are my friends. Friends are connected by the heart and soul." Naruto explained. "What is the heart?" Ulquiorra asked in genuine confusion. "You speak as if it is something more than a physical organ." Naruto sighed and rubbed his temples. It was like dealing with Sai all over again. "You seem rather repressed. You were a Vasto Lord, yes?" Haribel asked him. "Correct. Logically speaking you must be one as well. But I don't think we've ever met. I mostly stayed to myself," answered the Quinto. "Don't expect to stay alone. Naruto here likes to know people. Especially former Vasto Lord," the Shark Empress said. "My lord, I apologize for interrupting, but I have retrieved your package from the human world," Ggio Vega said as he appeared in a burst of sonido, a bulky package in his hands. Naruto perked up at the sight of it. "Excellent work Ggio. Tell the rest of the crew to prepare." "Of course sir." "What was that?" Ulquiorra asked. "That was sonido. I know what the technique was. But what was that?" Ulquiorra pointed to the package. Naruto grinned. "As Arrancar we have human bodies that can eat regular food. You won't ever have to gorge meat like an animal ever again. This is something far purer and delicious than stale hollow meat. This is the food of the gods." Naruto opened the package. "This is ramen." Ulquiorra stared down at the steaming bowl of noodles as Naruto slurped it up enthusiastically. Slowly and gingerly the pale Arrancar repeated the same action, mimicking his superior officer, slowly eating the noodles. "Interesting, humans made this?" "Yeah, even in my time when I lived they had this stuff." "You remember your life when you were alive?" For the first time Naruto detected honest surprise in Ulquiorra's voice. Yeah, Naruto Uzumaki, Shinobi of Konoha, or at least I used to be. He sighed. Do you regret your past life? Was it painful for you? Ulquiorra asked. It was painful, but I didn't turn into a hollow because of it. I was attacked by a hollow soon after I died and transformed into one. Naruto stated. But really, having human memories is a strength. You for example remind me of one of my former comrades. The Segunda told the Quinto. I do? A man called Sai who was one of my former comrades. He lacked emotion much as you did. You remind me of him strongly. Naruto told him, and then he paused. You don't make penis jokes do you? He asked. No, I do not, replied Ulquiorra, sounding confused. Ah, good, I was worried there for a second. Now I want to test your combat skills. Ulquiorra's Zanpakuto was called Murcielago. It clashed off of Naruto's hands as the younger Arrancar forced the Segunda back with a series of blistering strikes. Naruto blocked another strike with his leg before kicking it away. He landed roughly in the same before Ulquiorra. The pale Arrancar pointed a finger at Naruto and green light collected there. Sero. The green light blasted forth and Naruto disappeared with a burst of sonido, reappeared to the center of the explosion. Then there was another burst of sonido and Ulquiorra reappeared in the air, Murcielago arcing down in a two-handed blow. Naruto leapt back, his jacket falling open, revealing his tanned chest and the gothic, 2 inches emblazoned above his hollow hole on his right pectoral. Then a thin cut appeared next to it. Blood began to trickle down briefly before the cut sealed up. Good, that's the first time you've managed to cut me when I'm sealed, said Naruto encouragingly. Ulquiorra's cold expression did not change. You possess high-speed regeneration? He asked. Correct. When I met my Zanpakuto Sprit I was offered power or regeneration. I choose regeneration. It had saved my life several times when I was masked. Naruto explained. Ulquiorra was silent for a moment, and then he cut his palm. Naruto raised an eyebrow as Ulquiorra held up the hand. The cut sealed itself up before his eyes. So you chose it too? Correct. When I became like this a hollow strongly resembling my Vasto Lord form approached me in my own world. I was offered a choice between Great Ryotsu and high-speed regeneration. I thought it prudent to choose the regeneration. I see, Naruto said. He withdrew Huracan and held it before him. Ulquiorra looked at it. Do you intend to engage in Zanjutsu? He asked. No, Naruto shook his head. Practice is over for today. I've always wondered about these blades. I've seen Ichimaru-sama use his Zanpakuto and as I know our blades are significantly different from what the Shinigami wield. I'm afraid I do not see your point. Well, I've asked Ichimaru-sama and Tusen-sama about many things. But right now I want to test a theory on how much of a Shinigami side we Arrancar have. Naruto said. He made a hand motion and reality ripped open. Unauthorized visits to the world of the living are forbidden. We aren't here to fight Ulquiorra. If we are attacked, then I will immediately retreat. No, I want to test a theory. I would like you to accompany me. The Segunda asked him. Ulquiorra's face was unreadable, but Naruto could tell he was hesitating. I will take full responsibility if Aizen-sama finds out, Naruto said. Ulquiorra was silent for a few moments and then moved to join him. The two moved through the darkness of the Garganta, pausing only to emerge on the other side of reality. Naruto stepped down to stand in midair over a bustling city below. It was nighttime and lights twinkled from below. It looks strange. I have not been to the world of the living in well over 3 centuries. Ulquiorra stated. I last visited the world of the living several decades ago. Naruto commented. These humans are amazing creatures. I wish I could spend more time here. He looked over at the Quinto. His comrade didn't appear to share his opinion. Come. Naruto kicked off and flew down into the city. He opened up his pesquisa and scanned the entire area for any size of a plus. Ulquiorra landed next to him on a rooftop. What are you going? He asked. Suppress your Ryotsu as much as you can and follow me. Naruto instructed, having finally found what he was searching for. He disappeared in a burst of sonido and Ulquiorra sighed and followed up. The Quinto could barely keep up with the Segunda like this. Ulquiorra stopped in front of a plus right after Naruto did. The plus was an old man who had probably recently died. He looked up in shock when he saw the two strange men looking down at him from above. What are you? He said. Instead of replying, Naruto withdrew Huracan. The man stepped back in fear. I thought you abstained from eating human souls. Ulquiorra said. I do, Naruto said, but this is something else. He reversed his sword and brought the pommel down on the man's forehead. A symbol appeared on the man's forehead as he gaped. Light appeared below him and the man sank in shock. After a few moments he had completely disappeared. Then the circle faded away from the two Arrancar's sight. Both of them were silent for almost a full minute before Naruto spoke. Holy crap, it actually worked. What was that? Ulquiorra asked. That was Kanso. A soul burial. I remember Ichimaru-sama telling me about it. I figured since we have Zanpakuto and some Shinigami powers, I figure we should be able to do so as well. Naruto answered. I don't see a point of reinforcing the enemy's numbers. Ulquiorra stated. Relax. That man barely had any spiritual power. He's no threat. Now I can sense another plus nearby. I want you to perform a Kanso, Ulquiorra. Naruto said. Ulquiorra glared at Naruto. Don't give me that look. Naruto wagged his finger. Play along, comrade. Ulquiorra sighed and withdrew Murcielago from its sheath. He followed Naruto as they flew over a parking lot and a pair of busy streets to land among a group of people. The plus, a young girl who was looking scared among the shops, turned around. What the, she began, but hardly had time to finish as Ulquiorra mechanically pressed the pommel of Murcielago into her head. A symbol appeared, followed by a circle of light around her as he disappeared from the world of the living. So it's not just me that can do it. But other Arrancar. Naruto chuckled. Let's go, Ulquiorra. The green-eyed Arrancar said nothing as Naruto opened a Garganta. Reality ripped and the two exited through it quickly. Slowly the Garganta closed behind them, leaving no trace of their presence. Omake. A man called Sai, who was one of my former comrades. He lacked emotion much as you did. He used to give people nicknames in order to identify with them better. I would like you to do the same. Naruto told him. Why? Ulquiorra asked. To integrate you better into Las Noches' military. Naruto told him. Ulquiorra looked thoughtful. Grimmjow roared as another phalanx of Calaveras dog piled him. Naruto stood several feet away, looking at one of the Privarin, Zale, who had been demoted recently by Aizen himself for some unknown reason that Naruto didn't know. Is it ready? Naruto asked hurried. He checked his arm, it had finished healing. Damn, he didn't think Grimmjow had it in him. Almost Segunda-sama, answered Zale as he operated what looked like OTB, some sort of gun. Naruto-sama, I don't think my soldiers can hold him back much longer, began Rudobin, who was in his resurrection spewing Calaveras at Grimmjow. As if on cue, more Calaveras were thrown high in the air as the Panther King came lunging forward at the curious Ulquiorra, a look of absolute rage. Ulquiorra, you bastard, screamed Grimmjow, claws stretched wide before a Calaveras came in, pinning each of his limbs. Now, Naruto shouted as Zale took aim. His shot landed true. The specially designed dart hit Grimmjow's harrow and sent the potent drug into his system. Sedated Grimmjow gradually stopped struggling and hit the ground. Naruto approached cautiously. The Ta had gone berserk in a confrontation with Ulquiorra and Naruto had to intervene. He had underestimated the Ta's rage as he actually damaged to wound Naruto somewhat, an impressive feat that would otherwise be impossible under normal circumstances. Damn, Grimmjow got pissed. Naruto commented. He looked at Ulquiorra. What did you call him? I took your advice about nicknames and I gave one when I observed Grimmjow's resurrection when he was training with his Fracione. What did you call him? Naruto asked curiously. Ulquiorra was silent for a moment. Grim Kitty. Ulquiorra answered truthfully, his face devoid of emotion. Grimmjow began to twitch violently on the ground at the mention of the name. Another dart hit him. Thanks, Zale. Alright, Ulquiorra, next time run the names by me, okay? Naruto sighed. Neutra's Zanpakuto crashed to the ground, the Espada too weak to maintain his resurrection anymore. He panted on the ground, blood dripping from wounds as he glared at the green-haired woman in front of him. Here, we're finished. Nelliel sighed. It's a good thing I made it in time for lunch, those two might worry. She stated, beginning to walk away. I told you this was our last battle. Follow through, damn it. Neutra growled from the ground, slowly picking himself up. Nelliel turned around curiously. Are you asking me to finish you off? She asked. Of course, dipshit. Neutra's single eye focused on her. No, stop talking to me as if we're the same. Once as humans we lost our minds and became hollows. We were like beasts then. Now as Arrancar we have reason. Beings with reason need a true purpose to fight one another. The Tercera stated. Well, I have one, you piss the hell out of me. Neutra screamed at her. That is not a reason. That's instinct. Neliel admonished. You are a beast. I can't acknowledge you as a fellow warrior. I can't burden myself with taking the life of a beast. The Tercera told him sadly. As she left, a figure walked behind Neutra. Neutra, are you all right? Offered a slim male Arrancar with a blue-green marking on one cheek. This was Tesla Linda Cruz, Fracione to the Octava Espada. A huge scythe axe crashed next to his head. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? Don't you dare think we're equal now because I couldn't beat her, Tesla. The Octava's single eye was frozen in rage. Tesla pursed his lips and was silent for a moment. Why attack Neliel Sama of all people? There are other Espada. I can't stand some bitch like her standing above men on the battlefield. That's all. Neutra glared at him with one eye before he stalked off, dragging his Zanpakuto behind him. Tesla started after him when he detected the distinctive buzz of sonido behind him. He turned to see who it was. Findor. He recognized Arrancar 29. I was talking a walk when I saw the end of that battle. Tell me something, amigo. Why exactly do you serve him? He treats you like shit. Findor asked. Neutra Sama is a great man. He's just being held back, but he's determined. To do what exactly? Findor cut him off. To become the strongest of all. Neutra will stand above everyone save perhaps Aizen Sama himself. Tesla told him. Usted no es exacta. He's been screaming for Neliel to kill him for every match I've seen them fight. He talks about how he's fighting an endless war. That's not determination, that's eventual suicide. Findor said. You don't know, Tesla began again. Don't lie to yourself, Linda Cruz. One day he's going to die on a battlefield somewhere. Hell, me and Avirama have a betting pool going. GGIO says he'll be done in a month. Findor told him. I can't talk to you anymore, huffed Tesla. So be it then. Findor knelt down next to a rock and looked out into the fake sun of Las Noches. Something big was going to happen, he could sense it. Neliel Sama, I'm flattered you wanted my expertise. Charlotte Coolhorn preened. Neliel 2 Odell Schwenk gave a musical laugh. Thank you, Charlotte. You are free to meet with me anytime. My lady, I can't forsake my duty to Naruto Sama, Charlotte began. Oh nonsense. We are good friends. Come, join with me for lunch. Where are those two? Neliel asked herself. Maybe they're lounging off, Charlotte began. Then he stopped. Before them was Neutra, a grin on his face. His Zanpakuto was slung casually over one shoulder. Yo, he said casually. Neliel's face hardened. Nothing that concerns you, she said, walking past him, Charlotte hurrying beside her. Carrying a weapon openly like that can be considered threatening behavior. If you wish to appear strong, then conceal it, she told him. Then there was an explosion behind her. She and Charlotte whirled around to see the bloodied and battered forms of Pesci and Dondoshaka. We, Dodd, are eternally sorry, Neliel Sama. Pesci chalked out. Their masks were ripped apart by force. Charlotte said, eyes wide. Neliel turned around, drawing Gamuza from its sheath. Neutra, you will pay for this. She lunged forward at the image of Neutra. Then it flickered out of existence and Neliel paused for a moment, confused. Neliel Sama. Charlotte shouted a warning, but it was too late. Neutra's Santa Teresa carved a large slash over her face and mask. She collapsed to the ground, bleeding profusely from her skull. Fucking bitch. Sparkle. Reina de Rosas. Charlotte yelled, entering his resurrection. I will not forgive you, he yelled as he rushed Neutra, who only grinned. Santa Teresa flashed in the sun once more. So which one do you think is the best? Avirama asked his comrade Ggio Vega. They were returning from a scouting mission out into the wastes of Hueco Mundo. It had been 3 days of hard travel, but Naruto-sama had been adamant on the mission. I'd have to go with Mila Rose. I put her at 9 out of 10 personally. Ggio said. Why? Is that some sort of cat thing? Avirama chuckled. Oh, shut up. What's your rating? Mila Rose has got it all, but it's kind hard to approach. It's the whole Amazon thing, I guess. Apache's nice in a tomboyish way, but she flies off the handle quickly. Sun's too stuck up for me. Avirama shrugged. As for the others, Sir Q's seriously hot, but nobody's going to associate with the Priverin. I have no idea what Harabelle-sama is hiding under that coat, but she is seriously stacked in any case. Lolly's a babe but a total bitch, and so is Mainoli. Well, what about Neliel-sama? Ggio asked. Well, I think is that her? Avirama looked out, hearing sounds and noticing a trio of blood-stained figures. Ggio peered. What the I think that's Pesci and Dondosheka too. What the hell happened to them? Ggio had sparred with Neliel's Fracione on a few occasions and knew them well enough. He was also aware of his master's friendship with the Tercera. The two Fracione quickly moved to the group of wounded Arrancar. Ggio looked in shock. What the hell happened to you? He asked. Pesci looked up. Zael Aporo and Neutra did this. They attacked us, ripped off our masks and then ambushed Neliel-sama. Avirama swore. Naruto-sama would not be pleased. Ggio looked over Neliel's now childlike form, blood spreading out into the sands below. Then he spotted another burnt and blackened corpse lying further in the sands. Is that, he began. He killed Charlotte, choked out Pesci. Avirama, grab Neliel-sama and take her to the medical bay. I'll inform Naruto-sama of this, Ggio said seriously. Ggio Vega, Arrancar 26 ran down the halls of Las Noches. Tigra Estoque at his side. He had an important message to deliver to his master. As fastest among the Fracione of the Segunda Espada, it made him the first choice for messenger. He walked out of a white hallway and winced as a heavy spiritual pressure hit his senses. Getting between Espada, even when sparring, always felt heavy, like a cloak over him. He walked forward over the railing and looked down. The blade of Murcielago clashed against a black-hilted Zanpakuto as Naruto Uzumaki ducked a return sweep and kicked the Quinto Espada back. Ulquiorra skidded backwards in the air, collected reishi in order to properly right himself. Time had passed and Ulquiorra had long stopped learning from him. Ulquiorra had remained reserved and stoic ever since Naruto had stopped training him, although the Arrancar still trained with Naruto, the Segunda being one of the few who could give him a good spar. Naruto stopped and held up a hand. The Quinto stopped and looked out to see Ggio kneel before Naruto. The Segunda sighed and sheathed his blade as Ulquiorra did the same. Naruto's fastest Fracione obviously had news. What is it, Ggio? Naruto sighed. Neliel-sama is badly wounded along with her Fracione. Charlotte's dead. Ggio reported. Naruto's relaxed expression transformed into a hard mask. Tell me exactly what happened. Zael Aporo Grant sighed and checked another beaker as he put together another chemical solution. It had been mere hours since Neliel had been disposed of by Neutra and himself. Soon Aizen would notice her disappearance and make changes in the Espada. He doubted any of them would be able to track her down by that time. Neutra had chosen a point that was outside the normal patrols, and in a few hours the former Espada and her Fracione would be swallowed up by the immense desert. Hello Zael. Sounded the voice of the Segunda Espada, Naruto Uzumaki. Ah, Naruto-sama, what brings you to my humble abode? Zael adjusted his glasses smoothly. Then he was bodily lifted off the ground by the throat. He looked down in fear at a smiling Naruto who had raised his Ryotsu. It filled the room in an almost suffocating wave. I know what you did to Neliel. My Fracione found her while returning from a patrol. I'm glad I made them go outside the normal routes for that occasion. Zael, I'm going to be blunt. I'm absolutely pissed off right here. Why did you do this? Naruto asked, his voice ice cold. And nothing personal. I just wanted an Espada's seat. Zael chalked out. The Segunda was truly pissed off. You didn't need to be a genius to figure that out. Zael, I want very badly to kill you right now. Fortunately for you, you are the only one who has the brains and skills necessary to heal Neliel. Naruto's eyes shone with a menacing light. You can redeem yourself by healing the Tercera back to her former state as well as her Fracione. If you fail, I'm going to rip you limb from limb. Do you understand me, Privarin? Naruto asked him. Why yes, Naruto-sama. Zael stuttered out. Naruto dropped him on the floor. Good. Now report to the medical bay. Ggio here will accompany you and he will report everything back to me. Naruto mentioned to the Fracione, whose face was stony. Now, Findor, come with me. Neutra-sama, is there something wrong? You seem awfully excited today? Tesla asked his master as he paced around his quarters. Neutra seemed to be preoccupied with something. Unfortunately, Tesla didn't know what it was. The Octava suddenly grabbed his Zanpakuto and looked around. What the, he began before a shape literally burst through the wall. Naruto continued with his charge and face-palmed Neutra through the wall of the fifth tower and outside. The Segunda and the Octava fell 100 feet down into the sands below. Neutra-sama. Tesla drew Veruga and got up from his seat. Then with a burst of sonido, Findor appeared in front of him, most of his mask already chipped away. Findor, what is the meaning of this? Tesla demanded as they locked blades. You mean you don't know? Findor asked as he kicked Tesla away. Findor looked angry. Neutra attacked Neliel-sama and badly wounded her in a sneak assault before dumping her half-dead carcass into the desert. Vivirama and Ggio were lucky enough to find her. Charlotte's dead body was discovered nearby. Findor told him. Tesla's eyes widened in shock. What? Neutra had gone too far this time. Naruto-sama is going to kill him. Findor told him. No, I must protect Neutra-sama. This can't be allowed. Tesla shouted and began to move. No es exacta. You won't. Stand down or else I'll be forced to take measures. Findor warned him. I cannot. Crush, Veruga, Tesla said. Ryotsu swirled around him and smoke appeared. In a moment a massive boar-like warrior stood before Findor, fists clenched. So be it. Engrave upon the surface of the water, Pinza Aguda. Findor released his own Zanpakuto. Indigo Ryotsu faded away to reveal his Resurrection. A pincer in half armor now covered the right side of his body and he had a small pincer covering his left hand. In a second, the two Fracione charged into battle. Neutra rose from the sand below, one eye narrowed in rage. He grabbed Santa Teresa in hand and hoisted himself up. Standing several feet away with Huracan drawn, was Naruto, his face a cold and hard mask. What the hell, Uzumaki? The Octava snarled. I found Neliel. I know about Charlotte too. Naruto said simply. A chill ran up through Neutra's spine. Or rather my Fracione did. But it's irrelevant now. She's already in the medical bay, being treated for her wounds. Zale already gave you up. You've lost Neutra. Fuck you Naruto. The bitch deserved to die. Neutra screamed. For a moment Naruto saw Sasuke's face snarling in rage. All of Konoha will burn. He dismissed the image. Release your Zanpakuto Neutra. Naruto ordered him. Fuck off. The Octava shouted as he rushed forward. Scythe axe descending to strike at Naruto who blocked the blade and kicked him several dozen feet into the dunes. Release. I want you to understand just how big of a gap there is between you and me. Naruto ordered, before disappearing in a burst of sonido and cutting a huge wound across Neutra's chest. The Octava raised Santa Teresa and struck at Naruto, only for the Gemello's clone disappear and the Octava receive another slash across the back. Release. Naruto said calmly. Shit. Pray, Santa Teresa. Neutra screamed. Ochre Ryotsu and sand whipped around and around, obscuring the change. After a few moments Neutra's release form revealed itself. Naruto recognized the changed form Neutra's earlier battle with Ulquiorra, except now there were 6 arms instead of 4. His wounds were also healed. He raised Huracan and blocked the flurry of strikes from all 6 scythes acting in unison. Naruto's own Zanpakuto flickered back and forth, creating small nicks and wounds on the Octava as the two battled back and forth. Then suddenly Neutra's foot kicked up, sending Naruto crashing into a nearby pillar. The Octava stuck out his tongue and fired a yellow Sero at the pillar, causing a massive explosion to result and scattered debris over the area. Ha, Segunda my ass, you couldn't handle me, Neutra laughed. Then he noticed something was wrong. Naruto was standing a few feet away from him and one of the Octava's arms was missing on the ground. What? I'm done playing around. With a flash Naruto was on him. One arm, then another was severed as Neutra regenerated them. Another massive wound was slashed across his chest, then from his shoulder over his back, then a pair of wounds across his knees. Then another arm was lost. Neutra could barely keep up with Naruto, whose blade was forcing him back with every step. And throughout this Naruto maintained the same cold expression as before. Yet inside he was raging with all the hate of a volcano. Finally, Neutra sputtered and fell back into the ruins of another pillar. He coughed blood and looked up as Naruto walked calmly on the air towards him. 4 of Neutra's arms were gone, severed by Naruto's blade, and multiple deep wounds covered his body. I can't die. Neutra coughed out. No, you want to die, Naruto said calmly. Neutra sputtered incoherently in response. I've seen your fights with Nelio. You're a goddamn death seeker, Neutra. I've heard you talk. You don't believe we'll ever find redemption. As far as I can tell, your entire life philosophy is constantly fighting until you are the strongest or until you find someone to snuff you out. Naruto told him. Neutra was at a loss for words. As the blood dripped down into the sands, Naruto spoke again. I'm not going to kill you out of revenge. I'm going to kill you because I honestly pity you, Neutra. I'm going to put you out of your misery. The Segunda stated. Don't give me that bullshit, roared Neutra as he charged forward. Naruto brought Huracan down. A massive wound ripped its way across Neutra's chest as he staggered away, a copious amount of blood flowing from his wounds. The Octava fell to his knees, his single eye focusing on Naruto as he calmly sheathed Huracan. Don't fucking pity me. Neutra hissed out as he died. He was dead before his corpse hit the ground. Naruto was silent for a moment as he watched the life fade away from Neutra Gilga. He sighed for a moment, then he charged a Sero before reducing Neutra's corpse to ashes. He hated the man, but at the very least he didn't deserve his body being picked apart by scavengers. Goodbye, Neutra Gilga. I hope you find peace, wherever you are, Naruto said softly. Tesla fell to the ground, blood dripping from his wounds. Across the room, Findor staggered back, his body bruised and battered from Tesla's strikes. It was a close fight, but Findor was holding the upper hand. Already massive wounds had been gouged from Tesla's flesh. Then the two Fracciones snapped to attention as Naruto reappeared with Sonido. Tesla looked up, eyes wide. Your master is dead, Naruto stated flatly. Tesla rushed him, his massive fist striking forwards. With a burst of Sonido, Findor reappeared before Naruto and blocked the attack himself. Findor, thank you, but let me clean up here, Naruto said, before he disappeared. Tesla then felt only pain as his side exploded in blood. He fell to the floor, his resurrection fading from his body as he clutched his wounds. Naruto reappeared in front of Tesla. The former Fraccione looked up into the soft pitying eyes of Naruto. How could you? He was the only one there for me. Tesla choked out. I did him a favor. I released him from the living hell he subjected himself to. And he was a traitor, attacking an Espada like that and killing my Fraccione. I couldn't allow a person like him to live any longer, Naruto replied. He looked over the Fraccione. It was almost like Haku and Zabuza. Are you going to kill me? Tesla said quietly. No, Naruto shook his head. You don't seem to have any knowledge of the attack. As long as you don't try and avenge Neutra, I leave your fate to your own, Naruto told him. Behind him, Findor resealed Pinza Aguda. He turned away from the Fraccione as Tesla bowed his head in despair. Actually, I changed my mind. No, I'm not going to kill you. Naruto knelt down and lifted Tesla's head up. Neutra already killed one of my Fraccione. As payment for his life, I will take you into my service. Neutra would want you to serve someone strong. Do you accept my offer, Tesla? Naruto asked him. The Arrancar was stunned. He looked into the cold blue eyes of the Segunda and realized that there was only one choice he could make. Why, yes, Naruto-sama. Good. Naruto breathed out. Understand this, Tesla. You belong to me. You exist now because of my mercy. Serve me as my Fraccione and you will be rewarded. Betray me and you will die. Do you hear me? He asked. Perfectly, sir. Nelliel sighed as she looked around. She was in Las Noches medical ward and dressed in a thin white nightgown. Nearby Pesci and Dondosheka were also in beds. Zael was attempting to regrow their hollow masks slowly and return them to their former states, but it would take time. As for Nelliel, she was returned to her former body. Her wound remained as a scar, but otherwise she was alive and well. Zael shuffled in, behind him came Naruto and Findor. Nelliel looked over the Segunda and noticed the bloodstains on his coat. Is he? She began. Neutra is out of his misery. He'll never harm you again, Naruto told her. I pity him, she confessed. Naruto took her hand. It's okay. In a way, he got what he wanted. He died standing in battle, Naruto told her. Her eyes met his. Zael coughed. Apologies for interrupting this moment, but I have some news for you too. Naruto and Nelliel turned around to see him. During your revision to child form, Reishi leaked out of your mask. I was able to return you to your former age, but I'm afraid you lost some of your power in the change. Zale said. Can you find a way to return it? Naruto asked him. Hopefully. I've never encountered this phenomenon before in an Arrancar. I'll have to conduct more research on it. But for now she will be weakened. But not by too much. If I'm correct, she'll still be in the Espada, but demoted. Zale said. I can't really forgive you, Zale. But I'm letting you live, for now. Don't squander my mercy. I want you to find a way to fully restore Neliel. Naruto ordered him. Yes, Naruto-sama. Zale gave a deep bow and moved out. Naruto. Neliel said softly. It's fine. I don't mind any loss of power. I never cared about rank. She stated. I know, it's just that this never should have happened. Naruto sighed. It shouldn't have, but I have you to thank. She smiled up at him. He smiled back. Findor Koreas sat on top of a tower, enjoying the beating sun on his face. But his mind was elsewhere. In his hands he held his Zanpakuto, Pinza Aguda across him. He was entering his inner world and his own Zanpakuto spirit. Just as Shinigami had their own spirits, Arrancar had theirs. Although theirs was more of a manifestation of their own hollow powers than a piece of their souls. Findor's own inner world was a white island in the middle of a sea. Findor? A voice called behind him. Findor Koreas, Arrancar 24, was rudely awakened from his attempts at Jinzen. He opened his mouth to yell at whoever had interrupted him, but stopped when he saw who it was. It was Sunday to Sunday, one of Haribel's Fracione. I couldn't find you at the training grounds. Shame you for making me wait. The Fracione covered her mouth with her sleeve. Apologies, it's my fault. My master is extremely upset. Findor said. He seemed fine when I met him. You don't know him like I do. The recent events concerning the former Octava are bothering him. He is planning alone and won't let any of my fellow Fraciones speak to him. That is not like him. Findor sighed. Is that about the former Tercera? Sunday to Sunday asked. In the wake of Neliel's attack, she had been demoted to Quinto while Haribel moved up a rank and Ulquiorra followed her into the Cuatro seat. Exacta. Findor sighed. They both liked Neliel. She was kind and courteous to them even though they were mere Fracione. She was intelligent and a skilled warrior. Findor had enormous personal respect for her. Findor believed that life was merely a series of difficult problems. If one held the answers to these problems, then they could easily be solved. But he couldn't seem to find an answer to this latest problem. Is this because of Aizen-sama's indifference to her almost death? Sunday to Sunday spoke. Exacta. Findor repeated. I was there when he dispatched Neutra. His rage wasn't like Yami's. It was ice cold. And then I was with him when Aizen casually took the news of Neutra's death and Neliel's wounds in stride. He barely spoke to Naruto before ordering to assume his post while Aizen resumed his masquerade in Soul Society. He seems awfully attached to Neliel-sama. I had thought we Hollows couldn't feel those sorts of attachments. Or at least until I met Haribel-sama. Sunday to Sunday sighed. Naruto-sama is of the belief that we are not fully Hollow anymore, because we are now part Shinigami and thus have more access to our emotions. Findor explained. Do you believe that? Sunday to Sunday asked. Exacta. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.